farmer dog.
We're going to move. Might be the headphones.
Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
A hearty welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 8th of June 2025, and a significant date at that. We'll get into that as the program continues. We are live right now on the Facebook pages of Our Revolution Pennsylvania, the TCP Media Group, Hot101.net, and of course our home group Facebook page for all things that surround the program, a newly renamed The Kennedy Effect on Facebook. We are live on 2 YouTube channels. The YouTube channel for Ghost Claw Productions Radio, GCPR.live, and our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. We are live right there on both right now. You can watch there live in real time, comment, ask questions, and so on and so on. I will see them right here on the right hand side of my screen. Regardless of where you comment from, I will see it right there. So we encourage you to do exactly that. We are also, the audio, of course, of the program blasts around the globe via 2 radio internet giants. One of the very originals, one of the very first, Hot101.net. Our name is our web address. You can listen to us entirely, 100% for free at www.hot101.net. You can listen on desktops and laptops and tablets and phones. You can Bluetooth to speakers and headphones and earbuds. You can Bluetooth it in the shower. You can Bluetooth it in the car because you know you want to sing along, but you don't always want anybody else to hear you. So you sing along in the shower and you sing along in the car. Bluetooth it there, and of course you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net, GCPR.live, GhostClawProductionsRadio.live.live, GCPR.live is our main website for the radio station I am humbled enough to share ownership with Thomas Bishop. We are live right there right now. The audio blasts around the globe via GCPR.live. If you go to our website, you can listen to us 100% for free as well. You can also learn everything that you ever wanted to know about GCPR.live and more. There are bios for all of our show hosts, our complete broadcast schedule, as well as merchandise and information all about our station, GCPR.live. As we speak, well, I should say that we are going to have a guest on the program. If you read the header for the program, you will know that we do have a guest scheduled to come to us around 6:30 tonight. And that is Christopher Kowerdovich, a great friend, not just of myself and Kristen, but a great friend of the program and a friend to all of you as well. He's going to be coming to the program to discuss what's happening in Los Angeles right now, as well as the military parade that's going to be happening, the ego parade, really, perhaps is what we should be calling it, as well as threat to the VA, the veterans protest that's going to be taking place in Washington, D.C., the healthcare resolution that was passed by the Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee just a week ago, as well, I should say about 8 days ago, as well as many other things. Wherever our conversation takes us, you know how we do the conversations here on the program. They are organic, they are live. We don't come in with any scripted questions or any scripted topics or anything like that. We go where the conversation takes us. And Christopher should be joining us around 6:30. That is the current plan. Barring anything unforeseen, he will be with us from 6:30 Eastern Time. Remember, all the times that we talk about here on the program are Eastern Time, unless we tell you differently or unless we unless I remember to do the conversion from Central to Pacific, from Eastern, and so on and so on and so on. And I don't always remember that, as I just forgot. So from 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central, 3:30 Pacific, I had to do that in my head. Did you see the gears? Did you see the smoke? It was pretty something. It was quite a sight to see. Christopher will be with us to discuss all of those things and more. We hope that this Sunday evening that our program finds you all happy, healthy, and well. A special hello for both internet radio stations as well as our video streaming platforms, but really the radio stations. We bid you a very special hello for those of you who may be watching and or listening outside the United States. Both radio stations have significant listenership outside the United States. So if you are listening throughout the Western European continent, throughout Africa, Southeast Asia, Central and South America, we welcome all of you to the program as well. If you're watching on the video streaming platforms, I would be thrilled if you could drop a hello into the chat with a first name and where you're listening from. That's it. If it's Bill from Great Britain or Jürgen from Germany or wherever it might be, I hope that you will do us the favor, so to speak, of dropping a name and where you're located in the chat. This is a significant day. As I'm listening to myself here in my own headphones, this is a significant day. Because what I think is playing out in Los Angeles as we speak, and it might be why the listenership is a little light right now, and perhaps many of you are glued to the TV, and I don't blame you necessarily. I don't think any of us thought that there was going to be an active military action inside a United States city on U.S. soil. What I believe that we're watching in Los Angeles today is a test. I believe it's a trial balloon. I believe it's an experiment of sorts. In that, I believe this regime wants to see just how far it can get away with using U.S. troops inside the United States, and how it can turn to troops, armed troops, as an answer to everything. Don't like how people feel about a certain issue? Send troops. Don't like that people are exercising their constitutional right to protest peacefully? Send troops. Don't like a judge's decision about one of your executive orders? Send troops. I think this is a test, what we're facing here today. Now, the protests, to the best of my knowledge, and I say that with great deliberation, have not all been completely peaceful. Folks, when you protest, you cannot give the other side a reason to become violent. Now, do they need one? I think they've shown that they don't necessarily care if they have a good reason or not. They're happy to become violent. But we can't give them one. I believe that every American with any concern, even the slightest of concerns, about what this regime is doing and has already done to this country, should be in the streets with signs and sandwich boards and whatever else that you tend to your dogs, whatever else, walking your dog in the middle of a protest, certain clothes, outfits, costumes even, whatever you see fit to protest with. I think you should be in the streets protesting. It is your constitutional right. It is absolutely your constitutional right. But it must, under all circumstances, remain peaceful. We cannot give them a reason to become violent. And again, let me be clear. I don't think They've shown that they don't necessarily need a reason to become violent. They have shown they don't necessarily want one. I think this is a trial balloon, what's happening here today. An oft overused phrase. But I think this is a trial balloon, what's happening here. I think if they can get away with using these troops in Los Angeles, you're going to start to see troops in every blue city in the country. If what's happening in Los Angeles runs its course relatively peacefully and without much resistance, where do we see troops next? Chicago? Seattle? Portland? New York? Especially the majority black cities. Detroit? Philadelphia? Would they be in Boston next? Would they be in the blue cities that are in red states? Like Austin, Texas, Houston, Texas, Orlando, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina. Would they be next? Would we see troops begin to, pardon the phrase, trickle down to the smaller cities? Newark, New Jersey, Jersey City, Trenton, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus. I think this is a trial balloon, what's happening here today. I think it's a test. I think it's a test of both sides, to be honest with you. Do the National Guard troops that have been deployed to Los Angeles, do they really want to be there? Do they think that their orders are just and legal? How much force are they going to be willing to use? Now, I have an article up from the Associated Press. It's one of those articles that is being constantly updated, so I do not know how much of this I can actually read to you that's going to make sense. This was updated about 7 minutes before we came. This was updated about 30 minutes ago. From Eric Thayer and Jake Offenhartz are the two authors from the Associated Press. Dateline Los Angeles. Tear gas was fired at protesters in Los Angeles on Sunday when some demonstrators moved close to National Guard troops and shouted insults at them. So no violence. They moved close and yelled at them. So what did Trump deployed troops do? Fired tear gas. Hours after President Donald Trump's extraordinary deployment of the military over the objections of the governor and mayor. Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles, Governor Gavin Newsom of California did not want these troops to be deployed and vociferously argued against it. But Trump did it anyway. Project 2025 ends democracy. It is the end of democracy. It is the codification of fascism in this country. It is the codification of totalitarianism and dictatorship in this country, and it's 2/3 implemented. What's happening in Los Angeles today, while maybe not directly a part of easy for me to say, or not, while not directly a part of Project 2025, it is certainly in the spirit of Project 2025. Totalitarianism, authoritarianism, total control by whatever means necessary. Randall mentions in the chat, it is now obvious that the masked, nameless ICE agents terrorizing our communities around the country are now made up of pardoned Proud Boys, and other January 6th violent criminals are now Trump's brown shirts against the people. Randall's comment may sound dramatic, but there is evidence that some of these Proud Boys have been made ICE agents. They're wearing masks to protect their anonymity. The Proud Boys have become part of ICE, and the Oath Keepers, and the, what's the third one, the real big one, the other kind of big one, the 3%ers, I think I'm saying that right. I think I have that correct. I very well may have that incorrect, but I think I'm right, the 3%ers. Bettina, welcome to Bettina as well. I forgot to say welcome to her. She thinks that sending ICE to some of these cities where they know they will meet large-scale protests is done purposefully to justify, and I'm going to finish your sentence, and if I'm saying anything that you're not thinking, Bettina, please correct me in the chat. I think this is done on purpose, sending ICE to cities where they know they will meet large-scale protests to so-called justify the deployment of troops. You may be correct. Generally speaking, most Americans don't like protests that get violent, and they assume that protests are violent when tear gas is deployed. So what's the first thing you do, even when the protesters are nowhere near you, and there's been no violence, there's been no looting, there's been no broken windows, there's been no deploy the tear gas. Now yesterday, I did see a video of some burning cars in LA, and I honestly do not know. Is it possible the ICE troops set them on fire? I don't know. I don't want to get that deep down the rabbit hole. Is it possible the protesters set them on fire? Yes, it is. And that's not maybe the strictest definition of violence, but it's property damage. It's enough justification for these combat troops to deploy tear gas. And then as soon as most American people see tear gas at a protest, they immediately think that the protest was violent, even if it wasn't. They tend to immediately think that it was, or is, because this is happening currently right now. If you're not watching us and watching TV, of course you can't hear me, but you're seeing this in real time. You are seeing the beginning of troops on every corner in this country in real time. You're seeing a produced, quote-unquote, justification for the suspension of habeas corpus right in front of us. Now, my father was a Republican, very, very staunch one. I lost him over 8 years ago, that he's been gone. We lost him in 2016. I don't know if he would recognize this country. He served in the military in his country for 37 years. I don't know if he would recognize our nation any longer. I simply don't know. Would he be one of the proverbial frogs in the boiling water? Or would he know enough to know that what's happening now is just not right and is anti-small d democratic? Would he know? Randall mentions it's obvious that this escalation of using military forces in the streets in LA against peacefully protesting citizens is the pretense that Trump will use to declare martial law throughout the land. Not a crazy statement. Randall doesn't make crazy statements, so maybe my wording there is a little incorrect, and I trust that he will understand my point. But when Randall says that this is a pretense to declare martial law, can any of us really say that he's completely wrong? Can we say that he's coming from left field with that assumption? Not anymore. Not anymore. Even during the George W. Bush years, if this was happening, I don't think most of us would be awaiting the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. I don't think that we would all be preparing ourselves for troops on every corner and to quote-unquote show our papers. But can we say that Randall's wrong? Not in the least. Sherry from PDX Radio, welcome and thank you for being here. The video showed a guy setting one of the cars on fire. It's wrong and it provokes the cops. She is 100% correct, as she normally is. He's early. Our guest is coming in. Let me continue to read really quickly from the article. The confrontation broke out as hundreds of people protested in front of the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles, where several of the newly arrived National Guard troops stood shoulder to shoulder behind plastic riot shields. Video showed uniformed officers shooting off the smoke-filled canisters as they advanced into the street, forcing protesters to retreat. It was not immediately clear what prompted the use of chemical irritants or which law enforcement agency fired them. Minutes later, loud popping sounds erupted again, and some protesters chanted, "Go home!" and "Shame." One person was taken to the ground by uniformed officers. Another appeared to be bleeding from their head. Around 300 National Guard troops arrived in Los Angeles early Sunday on orders from Trump, who accused Gavin Newsom and other Democrats of failing to stanch, I've never heard that word, recent protests targeting immigration agents. The move appeared to be the first time in decades that a state's National Guard was activated without a request from its governor, a significant escalation against those who have sought to hinder the administration's mass deportation efforts. Let me just drop this little bit of a fact on you. This current regime is deporting less people than the previous. Let me just say that again for the sake of factuality. I think I just made a word. For the sake of factuality. I like the word, so I'm going to continue to use it. I think I was a little creative there in that one, so I'm going to use it. This administration is deporting less people than the Biden administration and previous administrations before that. They're doing it at what appears to be roughly 5 to 10 times the cost. So somebody's making money, but they're actually deporting less people. I promised you a guest, and he is here, and he's here early. So I'm going to ask him to unmute, and let's get started with the real expert here. You don't need to hear me dribble on. I do that 3 times a week. It's very nice to have a guest back on the program. Guest policy on the program is that I invite nearly everyone I know that knows anything about anything. Very, very few of them actually come. One who has come here multiple times now, I want to say that this might be your 4th visit, I think, is our dear friend to you out in the audience, and dear friend to Kristen and I both, is Christopher Kowerdovich. Christopher, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Jeff, and as always, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, you told me offline thank you to me for inviting you. You know that you are always welcome here. You never need an invitation to come here. You just need to tell me when you're available and what it is that you think we need to get out. Even that I don't need to know necessarily, but you're always welcome here. You never need an invitation, and I'm thrilled that you're here. I know that you were, as you were getting yourself set up and coming into the room and so on, hear a little bit about what we were talking about with the protests in Los Angeles. Before we get to kind of the news and so on, please remind folks, if you wouldn't mind, who is Christopher Kowerdovich and how did you get here?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Jeff and I, we both serve at the Democratic Party on the state committee. He does some great work up there too, and I'm the Veterans Caucus chair. I've been there for a couple years now. My 2022 is when I got elected as the Veterans Caucus chair. Do a lot of veterans organizing. I've been on the show because I've been back in grad school, finishing up my master's in health communication. We recently had a health resolution, which we were talking about, which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit here. On there, I was a medic in Iraq. I deployed, and I'm really interested in just social justice in general. I think being I really think there's a lot of improvements we need to do, and I think this country is. I feel like such a soft term to say headed in the wrong direction. But I try to think more stronger language.
Arguably, Christopher, heading in a whole new direction.
That is very true. One that I don't think we've really even seen, even under the last under 45. 47 is seeming to even do things different under 45. I think in part because nobody wants to work for him. He's a jerk. So he's gotten really bad talent in there.
We're, next year as a nation, we're going to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration, and I think kind of co-equally the 250th anniversary of this democracy. I've said on the program previously, and especially the loyal listeners will be sick of me saying the same damn things over and over again, but it's a shame we're going to celebrate this 250th anniversary, except that we didn't make it to 250 years, did we? We made it to about 248 and a half. Because this is not the same country that you and I grew up in. Project 2025 is 2/3 implemented, and I just think it's not. It's really not. It's not the country we grew up in. It just. There's a real, you mentioned it, that we're heading in the wrong direction. There's a real sense that we're heading into uncharted territory here, territory that the that the framers and founders feared and tried to write a declaration and a constitution to protect us from, and yet here we are.
When I was reading the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution recently, you look it through the light. Like, I think they were more prepared for this than we give them credit for. And he's where do I even begin with this all? And I do think that there were some good things, but have we been slipping away into a much more darker place than we've ever been? Seeing our civil rights are on jeopardy, everything that is going on. Even with this is, yes, it has been done before, going without a governor, going in, sending in the troops, the National Guard, that has been done before, but it hasn't been done in decades, and I think it's kind of like, if I had to, like an inverse,
if I had to guess, the last,
we're trying to look for like an anti-almost civil rights,
right, yeah,
that's what there we go, anti-civil rights, right, our basic human rights, a right to a trial, wanting just to, really wants to be a king. We have coming up this weekend, this March, and I think a lot of what's going on in LA is a lot of theater. It's political theater. There are dangerous things happening. I feel my heart goes out to the people who have been injured, all the horrific things that are going on. But he's trying to distract away from, we had a Veterans March on Friday. We have, this weekend, we have the No Kings March. and they're trying everything. They're trying to say that there's, we got to do this emergency because one of the beautiful things is, yes, what's going on in Washington is like we've never seen anything before. However, the caveat, the American spirit I see in so many of the protesters and so many of the organizers, what drives me every day to get up and keep working is to preserve what we have, fight, and take it back. And that has been my drive, is to, I seen this isn't just something we woke up one day to. Maybe I kind of disagree with you a little bit, because it started, I think, particularly with the Tea Party, and particularly the way it went with, how they disrespected Obama so bad. You could even go back somewhat to Reagan, but really you've seen it really intensify each time. And I do think Donald Trump, in part, was the Tea Party was a catalyst that really helped Donald Trump get into it. Remember, he did the whole no birther thing. The birther movement. That was Donald Trump's big claim to fame. So I do think this has been orchestrated. And the other distraction, it's against Elon Musk. Elon Musk has turned on him.
Do we think he's turned on him, or do we think that's theater as well to distract from the fact that this massive spending and tax cut bill is going to starve 7 million children?
It is a bill that is deplorable. I don't know how it is just.
It's the big brutal bill, because it's brutal to the American people.
It really is, and I wonder if some people. It's one thing to romanticize about all these cuts and everything, but then when you're kind of seeing it, you know what I mean, and they're doing it, I really wonder. I try to look at myself from, like, what is Elon Musk's really, out from my point of view, out to his perspective on all this. You're this multi-billionaire, hundreds of billions of dollars, and now all of a sudden your company's falling apart, your reputation's in the trash. I mean, 10 years ago, people love the guy, and so I wonder really where it is when it push comes to shove, all the things that they're asking for. I wonder, are these the true believers, so to speak, right? Like, are a lot of these people in Washington right now true believers in conservatism, and to the point where we're just going to go in there, and there was this kind of like the true believing, and that we were going to go in there, we're going to find trillions to cut, we're going to find all this waste, and this bill, we're going to build this big, Doge is going to come out, and we're going to be able to cut the huge chunks from the government, and it's going to be just great, because we know there's so much waste there. You always hear about like this waste, and you don't. What Elon Musk did, he literally takes a chainsaw to it, right? Sometimes you need a scalpel to get rid of something, not a chainsaw.
Well, he took a chainsaw to what he wanted to cut, and conveniently left alone the areas of the government that were paying him billions of dollars in contracts.
Well, I kind of seen a shift, and I think this is.
He went after USAID because it fed black children in Africa, and he doesn't like them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is just heartbreaking, and how entitled we feel. Like we've done so much progress in reducing extreme poverty in the world out of very little bit of money, working with a lot of non-profits, NGOs, non-government organizations. You look historically what we did in India with genetically modified food, with what was it? I think it was the Rockefeller Foundation, right? And just like the amazing things we've done since. You look at how hunger was post World War II into the new order that we've created. Oh, hi, friend. My friend wants to come say hi.
Oh, I love it.
My cat.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
You want to come see? He hears me on the camera, and he has to go and say hi in front of the camera.
I love it.
Hi, everybody.
I love it. Because, because we do these things from home, right?
Yes.
And if folks who are regular viewers and listeners of the show have heard the dog bark here, 100 times, They've heard me, I've sneezed in the middle of the program. I've had a run to the bathroom. I answered the door when the doorbell has rung. I mean, we do these things from home. So I love when the furry kids come in and have to be seen. I love it. I don't want to get too far. We can talk about the big brutal bill perhaps a bit later in your visit, and I don't know how long you're staying, and of course you're welcome to stay as long as you wish, but I don't want to gloss over what's happening in LA. I've just got an alert on my phone from The Guardian, a live alert that now tear gas and rubber bullets are now being fired into the crowd. Christopher, this is a very difficult question. If you think it's unfair, tell me it's an unfair question.
Okay.
You served.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of those 2,000 National Guard troops on the streets of LA, what the hell are you thinking about right now? Are you thinking we should not be here? Are you thinking I can't wait to kill somebody? Are you thinking somewhere in between?
I wouldn't be thinking I want to go out there and kill somebody. I don't think that's really what.
Do you think these troops want to be there?
I think when you serve,
I know it's a really hard question. I know it's a very, very difficult question.
I think when you serve, what you have to be is apolitical. You do, and it's a very challenging position to be in, because I think a lot of people, you have your political positions, and I think in a way, and maybe I'm going to pivot off this a moment, politically it has helped me, that mindset, because you don't have to get involved in every little thing. Maybe something isn't something I know about, right? Or I could be apolitical on a topic and really work to serve the people. So I think people I've been with are there to serve their country. They see that there is a response. They're being told to come up in there, and I don't think there is this I'm guns blazing and wanting to just get rid of these protesters or anything like that.
Well, these are California National Guard troops, so these are fellow Californians.
Correct.
On the streets of the largest city in California.
And
the fifth largest economy in the world, and I have to think they are there to do their duty. They have been called to serve. They are there to perform a function. I just wonder if they were Californians being deployed to, I don't know, even Arizona. I'm wondering if there wouldn't be a detachment.
To be honest with you about that. When you go through National Guard training, you go to the Army. You're in the Army National Guard. Mm-hmm. Some people have an identity with the state. Most don't. I really think have this strong identity of, in the United States and culturally in general. If you look at migration patterns, you look at it, the United States never really developed, and this is, I think, something that really gets conservatives upset. In modern culture, we don't really have a big affinity towards our states a lot of times. I learned my affinity because I deployed with a group of people, I'll give you my story, from all over the Commonwealth. And that experience led me into, and I remember thinking, like, when am I ever going to use this information of knowing all these Pennsylvanians, from knowing all this stuff, the geography, understanding the culture of all part of the states. And I think that has been a huge blessing, because of that deployment, I really understood, and I think I can really serve in my state committee role the people of our great Commonwealth really well. Do I feel like I'm an American? Yeah, I'm absolutely an American. And if I'd been in the National Guard and, I've been called up to a river flooding in Maryland, there would just be people, I was a medic. I was there. I served people. We treated people who were enemies of ours, and, tried to save their lives. You have a duty to serve, and I don't know. I mean, I don't really think that there is this really strong, we're going to go in there and, they're going to do what their role is. And so legally they're supposed to just provide support, because he hasn't gone through the proper, because it hasn't been an invasion. So he can't really make the claim that we're being invaded. He's trying to, he used another law. I'm not a lawyer, so I do forgive me for not understanding the nuances of it.
Yeah.
Go on.
That's two of us. We're not lawyers.
Yeah,
I'll
not
play
lawyers.
one on
I know
TV.
a little bit of law. I just study some pre-law, and I do protect. I do do the kind of the paralegal stuff when it comes to voter protection, but I am not an attorney. But anyway, so yeah, so they're not really there. They're there to back up the police, and what does that mean? Is you're supposed to what we call break contact. So if somebody attacks you, you're supposed to let the police go in. I know in EMS, that's another thing where we don't. I worked EMS. Was in the National Guard. I was trained to work EMS. You let the police secure the scene, right? So they're the ones that are supposed to go in there. It's supposed to be backup. I wonder if part of this is a show of force. You know what I mean? Like they really want to have. I mean, this is new developing, so I think it goes back to this kind of we don't know what Donald Trump is actually has a plan with this. And do we even know if he does? You know, so, but yeah, I think this part of this is just to put all those people on there to intimidate, which is Trump 101, intimidation.
Yeah.
Tactics, right? Like that is Trump. I think this is his administration. Things are not looking really that beautiful for him right now. People are questioning the bill. The fiscal hawks are coming in, yelping about it, right? Maybe it does get passed, but remember with Build Back Better?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, I keep thinking, oh, it's going to get past this bill. It's so horrible and everything. And I'm like, I wouldn't put money on it. I think it seems like it's going down the right path, but I wouldn't bet money on that it's going to get passed. So I don't know. I mean, it's so nerve wracking. You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard in the terms of the prediction, right? Like, what's going to happen with it and all those things. Oh man, is that is just to start getting distracted onto it. But yeah, I think it's just I feel so sad for I seen one of the SEIU people, one of their leaderships who got injured in this. You know, really, you know, I think that's a lot of. I feel my heart goes out to the people who have been victims in this whole process.
Is this something that National Guard? And I'm asking this because I honestly don't know the answer.
Okay.
This crowd control and being sent into widespread protests like this, or mass protests, if you will, mass considering the number of folks who are involved in it, I guess makes it a mass protest. No King's Day will be a mass protest simply because of the number of people and the number of events happening, literally thousands of them happening across the country. Is this something that National Guard troops are trained for? This kind of anti-protest crowd control? Maybe overly so, but I'm kind of concerned and wondering about what those troops are thinking right now.
So I cannot speak for MP. So there's military police that will. So they'd have to be trained like a police officer to know the Constitution. You have certain constitutional rights. I just know it in a very broad. I don't know what. There are certain things that they fall under the Military Code of Justice, but the Military Code of Justice cannot trump the Constitution, if that makes sense.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. No pun intended. So I don't know what it is. Now I'll just speak from my experience. Was I ever trained on a type of operation like this? And what I would be trained in would be to secure the location to make sure we're in a very safe way, that there's nobody actively engaging, and be able to run in there if there was somebody who was hurt and treat them as a medic. That would have been my extent of my training, would have been to be in a triage situation. In theory, what should have happened in my role would be somebody got injured, I should go in there and treat them. That would be I would think. Everybody's a rifle person, so I just wonder how the logistics. It's so new, you know what I mean? These are things that I don't know how they're organized. When I served with people in California National Guard, I always thought they were a great unit. I never had any. I thought they were well. California funds its organizations well, so I think they're really well trained. That's the way I should put it. California funds stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I, you know what I mean. So I mean, I've never really. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I would say no. They're not really trained to really. This is what police officers have told me. What's great about when you bring in a troop, so I'm going to talk from that perspective because I have worked with the police departments. I'm working on a project to make sure veterans, troops, when they get out, that they can go in, become into law enforcement. And what they said that you do not get what's called community policing. They do not understand how to build relationships and do those things. They're great on a SWAT team. They're great if there is. I've always been kind of. This is at least what the police have told me. If it's like a drug cartel, that they actually are really good with that, breaking up like a drug cartel because they're dealing with a paramilitary. It's like a paramilitary type of, like a really not like a really well orchestrated situation. They say on the SWAT teams are great, but like for this type of stuff, this should be community policing, right? A lot of peaceful protesters that just want to, go out there and hold up a sign. They're not here to break the law or anything. And, when I deal, at least my experiences has been recently in Westchester with the police, very amicable to us. So I think that community policing, and that's what I would say was felt very community-based policing, that, and there is no training on that. So really what you're trained is to be able to be a reservist, to be able to go to war. That's
right.
Really what you're primarily trained for. It's
to fight.
Yeah, I mean, and so Katrina was a disaster because we didn't do disaster preparation training. There's no, you're in the National Guard, you get 2 weeks of disaster training or anything.
I speculated.
Which, even with COVID, that was a disaster because
yes.
how do you, and I think it's a bad mindset really. I'm going to go into this for a moment and pivot onto it. So I'm in grad school. I was at Penn, and I went to Boston. I got my first master's over Penn, second master's over Boston, but I took the public health course there, and I was doing health communication, and people are like, "Oh, you're finally at your age, finding your calling and everything," and I'm like, do you not understand that we need medical reserves after you're in public health? You're a Ivy League public health institution. Are you not aware that you need medical reserves for a disaster? Are you preparing in any way, shape, or form for a disaster? Like, I was studying health communication because I was like, well, if I was going to go study communications, I wanted to at least get a health focus, learn the basics of the epidemiology, so that I could be useful, so that I can do things at my county level. If there is another natural disaster, that we're prepared with understanding the epidemiology and stuff. And I don't think we're not prepared. We're not the Boy Scouts. We are not prepared. I went to an event. There was a veteran event at the Boy Scouts, and everything was be prepared everywhere. And I'm like, America could learn something from that.
Mm-hmm. I speculated before you came on, and I think I guess I'm shifting the conversation here a bit. I speculated before you came on that this is a test. I think this is a trial balloon. That the answer to everything that's going on in any democratically led city is troops. Is this, am I being paranoid, or am I trying to look down, well, I think I'm trying to look down the road here. This regime has talked about suspending the writ of habeas corpus. It has openly flaunted and violated and ignored court orders, partially because the courts have no enforcement mechanism. They don't have their own private police forces to enforce their own decisions. This regime seems to have ignored the decisions it doesn't like and flaunt the ones that it does. I don't think, while complete totalitarianism and troops on every corner and show me your papers is not necessarily is not specifically written into Project 2025. Project 2025 is 2/3 implemented, and I think the implication for the end of democracy is inherent in Project 2025. So would it be your opinion, would you agree or disagree with me that this might just very well be a trial balloon, that in blue cities we're going to send troops every time someone sneezes?
I would say what I was just talking about earlier: be prepared. Be prepared. I don't
prepare for the worst, and hope for the best.
Yeah. I would say this. I kind of feel like Project 2020. I wonder this. This is a question I have, and I don't know. I wondered when I read Project 2025. Was this like Project 2025 is an end game? I don't think they're necessarily are. What they want is, and I think this has been an agenda that goes back into the even to the 80s, 70s, and 80s. Is
probably Nixon.
No, I think more 70s and 80s, particularly with this one, this specific thing where I don't think Nixon dreamed of this in that time period. This is more of the think tanks. This is more of the envisioning of when the Heritage Foundation comes out. And they look to Japan. And Japan basically has a de facto one-party system. It's sort of a democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're not, isn't it the Japanese LJP, Japanese Liberal Japanese Party? Is that what it's called? I think that's what the name of it. Or I know some way around there. I'm probably mixing up the words. But Japan's Liberal Party, which is classical liberalism, kind of libertarian-ish, I guess is the best way, but with the Japanese, culture of very conformityism. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been a far-right agenda for almost 50 years now. And that is really where I think Project 2025 wants. They wanted to get rid of Citizens United. They wanted to gerrymander. They're consistently trying to figure out, how do we get away from into a flawed democracy. It's not necessarily that they want to scrap the whole system, but they're still going to get what they want their way. They don't want to have to, really fight with it and just the viewpoint, somebody explained it like this was their vision, was that you would basically have the Republican Party be, I forget where I read this, beholden to the corporations, and then you have the Democratic Party as the middle person between corporations and the public.
Well, Project 2025 does call for the continued gerrymandering. It does support the massive voter purges that have been happening and continue to happen across the country. I've been asked this. I've said it on the program 100 times or more. I believe that there will be elections in 2026. There will be midterm congressional elections in 2026. I cannot guarantee that they will be free, open, and fair. I can't guarantee that there's going to be elections in 2028. I do tend to think maybe I take a way, not just glass half empty, but like nearly fully empty view of this. But, Project 2025 codifies into the Constitution, calls for the rewriting of the Constitution to make sure that corporations are people, that money is speech, that unlimited political bribery becomes the law of the land. It is rule by the rich, for the rich, with the complete benefit of the rich. The Project 2025 and this continued what you had mentioned earlier, that I do think was a very long-term plan beginning in the Nixon era with the Powell memo, that the rich have bought out the Republican Party. There is no Republican Party anymore. It's a very large extension of the Heritage Foundation, part of it owned by Musk and Yass and the Mercers and the Kochs and Bezos and Zuckerberg.
It's not just that. It's the conservative media industrial complex. That doesn't come from me. That's not a term I coined.
Right.
You know the first time I heard that from? the former Republican Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is on TV saying, I can't do anything about this. It's all going to be run by the conservative media industrial complex. And
of which he is a part, which is ironic.
I wanted to, but I think he said Republicans have lost control of it. And they don't.
Well, because they don't think
party
they
leadership.
exist anymore. I don't think the Republican Party in any recognizable form exists. It is. We refer to it here normally on the program in a couple of different ways, maybe too many different ways to keep it not so confusing. But the former political party known as Republicans, the Trump fascist Republican Party. I mean, there's probably many more clever ways than I've ever been able to think of to refer to it as. But
George Lakoff makes a very interesting thing that I thought we haven't really talked a lot about recently, which he said, this is what Republicans look at as the president. The president is the end-all be-all. Okay? That is the leader. You're to obey that.
For a party that used to value local government and
yes. Well, but this is the authoritarian side in their deep psychology. However, they will always believe that the Democrats have rigged the system. They don't have to listen to a Democratic president because that Democratic president
is illegitimate.
Fairly. Is an illegitimate, exactly. That's the exact word he used. I'm glad you remember that exact word. Illegitimate presidency. But when there's a Republican president and they see you toe the line. And I see that as, and I always knew that was gonna, a lot of people had predicted that this day was gonna come with Elon Musk. Right? Like he was gonna come out there and they were gonna butt heads. Right, that was one of the predictions. And chaos theory, I think, is really an important thing to think about here. As they try to control each and every dynamic of it, things change. And that's what's very hard. I think our system is a very hard, it's a hard to close off system. America is protected by two moats, right? Primarily. And it is a large country. Like, sure, okay, so let's say you shut down protests in Philadelphia. What happens if there's protests in Norristown, Westchester, Chester City, right? I had our protest. We didn't have it in Philadelphia. We had it in Westchester, PA. And Melissa Robbins came in. She's on ABC6 News, one of those commentators there, and she comes in from Philadelphia out to Westchester. How do you do that? There I think it's if 10% of a population is up in rebellion, you overwhelm your police forces or something. It becomes to a point where it could go into overwhelming the system. I think it's really important to think about that. If those things happen, overwhelm your systems.
Well, the regime.
I think this is part of the political theater of. Go on.
The regime is referring to what's happening in Los Angeles as insurrection.
Yeah.
Which is ironic to a point that it makes me nauseous after January 6th. But
you know what it is? It's double talk. It is right out of 1984.
It's accusing the other of doing everything that you do.
And you know what's interesting
as a deflection.
I want to go into 1984 for a moment here, and I think it's an interesting thing that we don't really pick up on. If you notice that they're super mad about everything all the time. They're always angry.
It's actually a Goebbels.
Rested, bothered face.
Yeah, it's a Goebbels.
The Secretary of Defense and the Vice President has resting, bothered face at all times. Do you ever see them happy? Can they actually do a genuine smile? I don't know. I just haven't seen it. Hypothetically, I don't know what a genuine smile looks like from either of them. And they're super mad about all that's going on all the time. And you know what it reminds me of? Hate Week, right? Like, they have to create a hate week with, who are they at war with? Is it Eurasia or East Asia, right? And it's really interesting because I was reading over it again in 1984, and I noticed how much he's talking about the preparations for Hate Week. And I think we've really kind of ignored that aspect of it. It is to get to a very primal kind of instincts out of us, right? And to kind of really rally it up and put on the fire, and the red alarms that you hear that goes on Fox News, and it's like, this is a disaster, and it's just this like angry energy at all times. And it's very Orwellian what we're seeing today.
Do you think the average American that did not vote for this, so I don't just mean members of the Democratic Party, but independents, non-affiliateds, disaffected, self-identified Republicans, because again, I don't think there's any remaining Republican Party left. Should they be scared of what's happening in Los Angeles? Should they be bothered?
Should be. You know what? Yeah, they should be. But I think a better question is, how do we get our message to them? How are we communicating with them about that? You know, one of the things you may have seen us going around at Pride I worked on up at State Committee was the LGBT literature. I don't know if you'd seen that. First time we've ever done that. And I pushed hard because here we go in June. How many times have you been in summertime and there's no literature on the tables at a Democratic place? I'm like, there's no literature. I'm like, this is our way of being able to curate information and inform it. And I had this mother of a child probably around our age. She was quite older lady. And she came up to the table and she's like, can I please have this? Because I get so confused and I don't know what to do with the voting. I'm just so confused that there are all these confusing. I just need this piece of paper. I was like, here, we have everything laid out.
Take anything you want
on this piece of paper. Just, yeah.
Tell everyone you know.
Well, yeah, no, people, and I think those are the type of people who are concerned, but what do? I don't know that there's an off-year municipal election. By the way, vote November 4th, right? Yeah. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be getting that message out there. And I think, yes, people need to be there, but one of the biggest things you can do is cast your ballot. Voting is the way, because I think it is more, I look at it like this. I think this is a kind of, at this moment, there's been setbacks from what our system is, like we've never seen before. But at this moment, it's still a setback. And I think if we really show up in 26, we'll be able to have an election in 28.
Use your vote, because it's exactly why. It's exactly what they don't want you to do.
Well, interestingly enough, there's two things that really that we've seen really happen a lot in politics. One is they make a strong emotional connection to you without any substance. Now,
fear-based.
Well, but it could also be like
Anger-based.
Morning. It could be like Morning in America.
Yeah.
Morning in America was a commercial that was like, "Look, people are getting married at record rates." Yeah, because there was the baby boomers. There was literally a boom of babies at the age to get married. So of course, there's more people getting married because there are more people reaching marriage age.
Yeah.
All right, but
Math.
that was what Reagan's measurement was about record-breaking.
The
marriage.
health of the society. Yeah, a society that he himself said does not exist. That we're just a group of rugged individuals. Let me just hold right there. We're at 7:06 Eastern Time. We have entered our second hour of the program. My honored guest, the honorable gentleman, Christopher Kowerdovich, has revisited the program, and we are thrilled that he has done exactly that, because you guys, I'm on the air 3 times a week now. You get to hear me blather all the time. It's nice to hear someone else with a very educated and much more educated opinion than I share his opinions with you. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 8th of June, 2025. We are live on the Facebook pages of Our Revolution Pennsylvania, the TCP Media Group, Hot101.net, and of course Ghost Claw Productions Radio. We are live on our Facebook group. I renamed the Facebook group as I promised you I would. It is now simply called The Kennedy Effect on Facebook. We are live there right now as well, including the over 100 other locations across the Facebook universe where we have shared the program, and I will try to finish that sharing actually in this second hour, because of course, as usual, I was blocked from finishing it in the first hour, as we usually are. My ego is so ginormous, one YouTube channel can't hold it. That's why we have 2 of them. We are live on the YouTube channel of Ghost Claw Productions Radio, as well as that other side of information on YouTube. I have not renamed the YouTube channel yet, but I plan to. going to just simply make it the Kennedy Effect on YouTube. Very, very simple. Too simple. So simple. A simple guy with a simple mind renaming things in a very simple way. That's basically how it's going. And of course, the audio of the program blasts around the globe via two internet radio global giants, the hot101.net, one of the very first. Our name is our web address. You can listen to hot101.net on any type of device that can connect to the internet below, on, or above Earth, and you can do so 100% for free. The best price of all, inflation-proof pricing. You can listen to hot101.net completely for free. Our name is our web address, hot101.net, hot101.net. But you don't need the website to listen. You can use our apps, the Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android devices, and the TuneIn radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you are listening. One of the really awesome things about both the website and the apps is that no need to register, no credit card, no blood sample, no retina scan, none of that stuff. You download it, you tap it, it opens, and you are listening the way that you are probably listening to us right now. Ghost Claw Productions Radio, the internet radio station that I am humbled enough to own half of with Thomas Bishop. We, as the 50%, see the halo over my head there. It's a 50% halo at least anyway. As part owner of the radio station Ghost Claw Productions Radio, we are live right now there and blasting around the globe. You can listen through our website as well as learn everything you ever wanted to know about the station and more. You can see hosts, bios for all of our hosts. Our show schedule is there. When we are live, merchandise is there, information, news stories, everything there at and you can contact us even at GCPR through our website, Ghost Claw Productions Radio, gcpr.live, gcpr.live, gcpr.live. A special hello to listeners who may be viewing and watching us from outside the United States. Both Hot 101 and GCPR have significant listenership outside the United States. So if you're watching us on any of our video streaming platforms, or just watching us, or just listening along the radio, if there's any way you could let us know where you're listening, I'd be thrilled to know where you're tuning into us around the globe this, well, at least Sunday evening here in the United States. It's already Monday morning in other parts of the globe as we speak. Christopher, you brought up the word that I think has become way too much of a buzzword, and believe it or not, as critical as I can be of our party at times, a word that I think our party is taking punches to the chin for that I'm not sure are justified, and that is the M word, messaging. And this is not something that I was originally going to talk to you about, but you mentioned the word messaging, so I think it's worth discussing.
Absolutely.
Are Democrats just really, really bad at messaging, or do we fundamentally not know how to message to people who simply don't hold any of the values that we hold? For example, the 78 million plus million people that voted for a man who said he wanted to be dictator on day one. It's not a value that you and I hold. A man who said he wanted to send troops through the streets to round up immigrants. Now, originally he said criminals, but we're not doing that. We're raiding restaurants and arresting the guy who's washing the dishes in the back, the immigrant family who's picking strawberries on a farm somewhere in New Jersey. Folks whose answer to everything seems to be to shoot first, ask questions later. A man who openly talked about rounding up his political enemies, prosecuting them, and putting them in camps. And yes, during the campaign he used the term concentration camp. Whenever there's a Mondays with Mackenzie protest here in the Pennsylvania Congressional 7th, I know it's a bit of a throwaway line, but I think there's a little more substance to it when someone like Ryan McKenzie says, well, they're all paid protesters. Because in his warped brain, nobody could actually stand outside in bad weather without being paid because they actually believe in something that deeply, because he doesn't believe in anything other than money and his own self-aggrandizement, then obviously the rest of the world doesn't believe in anything. Very, very long question, I admit.
So
surprise.
But I'm going to give you a long response. I'm going to try to answer each bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, do we not know how to message to these people, or are we just so fundamentally disconnected from them that you can't message to them?
It's the money. Messaging costs money.
Right.
The first thing we don't do well is
there's no left-wing.
There is not an efficiency with our money.
Well,
the fact that I had to only be able to print 25,000 pieces of literature for Pride. We probably need around 50 to 60,000 pieces of literature. They cost 6 cents each. We'll go throw money up on a commercial. We will go up on MSNBC. I don't want to see a darn tune ad on MSNBC because it doesn't reach. You're preaching to the choir.
Yep.
And I think this goes into your other my thing is, we do have resources. Do we not want to talk to people that don't agree with us? I have found in communications that people, particularly on the left, have a group they romanticize that will be the all-in, and it's always somebody that looks like them. You ever notice that? It's always somebody, whatever group you kind of like look at, if we just message to this group of people. I'm very clear with the Veterans Caucus. I'm like, I have my primary group of people I'm messaging to is not veterans. It's the people who support veterans. That's a bigger, if we're talking a number of group, people who are the intimate family members, their lovers, that make best friends, those groups, or neighbors, that makes up about 30% of the population, where veterans are only 6% of the population. So I go in there knowing that my primary target audience is my supporters, right? My VA caseworkers and doctors and people in the community, and knowing that my secondary audience is veterans. But I think for some people who, whatever they identify with, that just like mind boggles them, right? Like, why aren't you're not talking always to veterans? If I'm talking about who I need to communicate for a political reason, those are the two people. Yes, they are part of my audience, and typically they're part of that other 30% as well because they're friends, right? Or they know somebody. I've seen so many times I've seen a veteran be like, "Yeah, I haven't gone through that, but my buddy has, hearing loss, or is an amputee, or whatever it might be," right? They have a buddy like that, and so I think one of the things is that's part of the question. Are we just bad at messaging? My observation is I've noticed a lot of people just put out a sign and say, "I'm a marketer." Where's your experience? Where's your background? Like, I see a lot of political stuff not being curated by people who have the training for it. So I think that's part of it. I think we also have some amazing grassroots talent that we don't uplift their voices enough. I think you're a great example. Why aren't we getting people in front of that? Why? I'm gonna stop and flip the question on you a little bit here.
I love it.
You're gonna love this question. You're gonna love this question. I guarantee you. How hard is it for you to get the party to lift your voice up?
They
allow
don't.
You to have a platform, even though you've been doing this for almost a decade.
They don't.
How hard is it?
They don't. They don't.
Did you kind of answer your own question there? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we all see it. Are we just bad?
No,
I think a lot of it too is the power structure behind it. Everybody wants to preserve their power.
Yeah.
All the money needs to go for this person and that person. I get these fundraising emails. Oh, look at what's going on with David Hogg. He wants to raise his own money. You are our DNC. I don't have $2,000 extra to print LGBT literature. You're an LGBT member. Your PAC should just send us the money. Oh, I got to primary everybody. I'm like, don't get me wrong. I get that there are probably people you disagree with, and there are people I disagree with in the party. But you know what? I'm not using my party position to primary people. I think that is an abuse of your position.
Look, I think...
You know what I mean?
We're definitely not...
To raise $20 million at a vice chair, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's take the context into it, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, oh,
If I could pay myself that kind of money, I'd start a PAC tomorrow. But I mean,
and haven't communicated with those people either. Summer Lee hadn't co-sponsored on the Major Richard Starr Act, so I made sure before I got mad with her or anything to do it. Her special election meant that by the time the bill had closed, there was like this loophole in the bill. She could not co-sponsor it, so she had to kind of wait. There was some like legalistic reason. She emailed back. She's like, "I'm 100% on it." Right. So before I go running after somebody who just happened to, because of the way remember she had that special election because I don't know what happened. There was a special election, you know what I mean? So it was delayed her coming into Congress.
Yeah, didn't the previous rep pass away, I believe?
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember. I know something had happened.
Right,
so she runs, she gets in there, goes through a process. She's not on it. We don't just go and, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, she wasn't against it, you know what I mean? And it was this beautiful, like, oh my gosh, and they looked into it and they found out the technical reason why, and her people were amazing, you know what I mean? And every Democrat in the caucus was for it, and I went forward with it. Now, it took us like a week or two before I could, when everything got settled and everything, but like, I just think that, it's very disappointing when you're at our level, right? And we need some grassroots money to do the communication that when it works, right? Meeting people where they're at, doing that stuff, and then we have leadership that doesn't. That, to me, is so frustrating right now.
It seems to me, though,
if you want to not be part of it, and you want to be in, some political action committee somewhere else and raise your own money and work through that way, okay, I get it. That's what you want to do. The free country, it's free speech, right? That's great.
For now.
Well, oh yeah. Right. Like, I support.
Watch what's happening in Los Angeles. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I do
for now.
I do. Do you think there is some obligation for like the party to support their candidates?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot. I think there's a lot to break down there, and you were kind enough to put the question back to me. I'll gladly take it. One of the ironies of me hosting this program is that I'm much better at answering questions than I am at asking them. But does the party have an obligation to support this program? No.
No,
because
not
it is
program.
a commercial.
I'm sorry, not this program. I said, like, once like a candidate gets through there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what I was more being almost like a rhetorical question.
But I think you hit on something though. I'm reminded of the Air America days, where a nationwide, fully syndicated, left-leaning broadcast network was succeeding, and it was making a difference, and it was growing blue voters in red areas. And I can make a very strong case that in the midterm at 2000, it would have been 2006, that Air America was primarily responsible for flipping the House in that election. It took a hedge fund, it happened to be Mitt Romney's hedge fund, ironically, that bought Air America and drove it into the ground because they needed to silence it. It costs the party nothing to support my program other than to provide faces and bodies to talk to me. It costs them nothing. We are still the only live progressive media in this Commonwealth, period. I'm it. It's a badge I wear, but I don't necessarily wear proudly. I think there should be more of us. But we're the only live ones. There's recordings and there's podcasts, and I respect those people tremendously that do them. They're trying to do God's work, in my humble opinion. But we're the only live ones. We're the only ones where people can openly put questions. I'm pointing to the right-hand column of my screen here, my broadcast screen. Can openly and in real time ask questions and make comments and complain and yell and scream, justifiably or not, and if the guest is willing, can take phone calls directly from the public and have to answer those questions directly from the public. We're the only ones.
I'm willing to do that.
I don't need money from the party necessarily. We are a commercial enterprise. It would be illegal anyway. And remember, I think we're still the party that actually cares about legality. But that said,
well, I think
there is no left-wing There is no nationalized left-wing media machine, so I think that makes it even more important that if I approach the party for, would you come visit us on the program, that they should say yes. Now, that said, let me move a little deeper into messaging. When we think about, especially during the campaign, and especially during these MAGA rallies that were happening across the country in the campaign, that when reporters from MSNBC would be openly threatened with their lives in the middle of doing a report, Katie Tur had to be pulled from the campaign trail because Trump always used to point her out during these rallies, and she would get death threats, and the men would scream at her about how they were going to rape her in the parking lot, and they had to pull her off of the... So when I ask, do we just suck at messaging, or do we literally not know how to message to people with those values? Do you see my difference here? Are we just bad at connecting with these people, or these people?
Well, I would say.
Can you is it completely unable to connect with that kind of value system? If you even want to call it a value system.
I would say this is the argument that I would make. I would say you have a diehard group of people that you're never going to convince. I'm not going to try to go into percentages because I think that we get lost in the weeds. This is what we do as Democrats. We tell those people we value diversity, right? We are the party for inclusion and diversity and everything. But the day after the election, you know what we're going to start doing? We're going to start saying, you voted this way, and you voted that way, and you voted that way, and your group voted this way, and and I did a media analysis on it because I've heard this was a critique of it. And you know what? Around 10% were from independent news sources were doing the media analysis. Another 10% talking about like demographics. Another 10% was from conservative, and 80% was from left-wing, corporate left-wing media things. We are obsessed with putting you in a box. But then we tell people, well, we don't want to be put in a box, but we're going to put you in a box. That people, and I've heard it organically, people saying, I hate that. I hate being like, just because I am this group meant that I voted this way. And this comes a lot from Trump supporters. I think there is something that we need to really be concerned about are going on and stereotyping people.
The assumption
people don't like it. And I think that, but I need to know the data numbers. What are you using your data numbers for? I get these data analysis. Okay, so what are you using your data numbers for? Well, help me create messaging. What messaging? And then they blank stare. I'm like, that's not about issues. Tell me what the issues are. What are people concerned about? Right? What are these constituency groups telling you? What are people saying? I don't want to see people just as a number. I want to see you as an individual, right? Like your voice matters as a person. I think if we can really get our heads wrapped around that, that's when we're going to break through to those people, and then we can have those conversations, right? Once they start hearing that, they shut down, and then you know what happens? The money starts flowing in, and they're hearing a filtered version of what the Republican current party stands for, and that's what they go on. So I think we can do better. I think we can know better and do better when it comes to making people feel like they're a number. And that's a really sad part of something that I think is our problem, and that's where we have a hard time getting into it.
The SAM project, SAM project, is a $20 million initiative funded by the Democratic National Committee to study how to effectively reach the youngest Trump supporters and voters, high school age, first-time voters through college, essentially 18 to 25. And one of the things that has come of this, I suppose you and I could probably do an entire program about the justifiability of the SAM project to start with. I'm suspect of it, but it is what it is. It's happening. It's been funded, and it's. We might as well see what they have to say or what they come up with. One of the things that they've come up with so far is that Democrats don't, quote unquote, fight hard enough. We say we're going to solve the student loan crisis, but then we didn't fight hard enough to do it. We say we're going to support Medicare for all, universal health care, and then we don't. We say we're going to, and on and on and on, and we don't. And they want a Democratic Party that is quote unquote tougher. And I think they mean, I think they mean, because I will freely admit that I can't be certain of what they're thinking. And I'm not sure that I want to be, but I don't know if I want to crawl inside some of those heads. But that said, they want a more Trumpian tough party, tough speaking, tough acting party. Right or wrong?
100%. I mean,
are we tough enough?
No. I think a lot of we're trying to always.
Are we too busy trying to intellectualize toughness?
I think we're trying to be soft. I think we want to make a gentle, soft kind of. I have seen a tremendous. The more stronger I've upped my rhetoric style. When I was at a campaign speech, I was going strong, using strong language. I think they want warmth, but they want competency. And I think a lot of times when you're so warm and friendly and empathetic, what you lack is that competency. Mm-hmm. They want to hear people who are able to be tough, but really be able to know what they're going to do, right? Like when you promise people Medicare for all, and you don't have a way to pay for it, right? You haven't come up with a scheme. Go on. I mean,
the electronic.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen candidates in general, right? Like we.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there.
I was going to say I have a way to pay for it, but the electronic stock transaction tax.
There you go.
Would generate literally trillions of dollars per year.
Right, but when you go out there and you make these big promises, and then you don't have a way to really deliver on them.
So it's like saying I support this, but I can't, and then I support these 5 things, and the crowd then shouts back, how? And you have no answer.
Yeah. Was it Pete Buttigieg? It was like, oh yeah, I support Medicare for all if you want it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it was one of the most irritating things about him to me.
Yeah, but that was, and I love him. I think there's a lot of great with him. I do really like him a lot. But that's like one of those things that really irritated me in terms of.
He supported
I think American politics really changed when they were just used to kind of cranking out the Reagan thing, and the Great Recession happened, and they've been in this kind of like lost mode. In terms of trying to figure out, like, take for example,
can't take enough water.
Like they don't want to raise, they'll never raise congressional pay rates, right? For like 15 years or whatever it's been since like 2009 or something. They haven't given Congress pay raise. That not even keeping up with inflation. It's kind of like, oh well, look, we did something for you, right? What does a pay raise to 535 members really mean?
Or cost? In the grand scheme of
there's nothing. If you doubled their pay in Congress, it really wouldn't really do anything, right? But it's like, look, I'm not corrupt. I just voted away my pay raise. Vote for me.
In fact, I think the last time they had a pay raise, they did it in a way that they did not have to vote for it. They did it in a way that if one member stood up and opposed it before midnight of a certain day, then it wouldn't go through. Otherwise, it went through automatically. But I did see an interesting meme yesterday that Republicans, members of the House, let me take that back, members of Congress, all 535, receive $79 a day meal reimbursement. But SNAP benefits for 7 million children cost $6 a day, but we're trying to starve the 7 million. We're trying to starve the 7 million kids, not cut the $79 reimbursement for meals. That seems to me to be a very straightforward, very understandable factoid But it also doesn't seem to be reached exactly the kind of factoid that Democrats tend to use on a regular basis, me included.
Yeah.
Right? Just the income tax cuts alone, starting with Reagan through Trump, have transferred over $55 trillion of wealth from the bottom 99% to the top 1%. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And it's a fact that when you say it to most people, especially one-on-one, will anger them and get them to think a bit. And we seem to be loaded with these factoids, but they don't seem to be getting anywhere. Does that go back to the lack of media structure on our side of the fence?
Here's one thing. And I don't hear Democrats say, and I'm going to say it right here. I want to end poverty. I want to end poverty in our country. I think, what Lyndon Johnson put forth in Great Society, what was built on the new... I know some people say it's part of the New Deal era, whatever. However, the nuance there, you want to communicate it out. New Dealism. Mm-hmm. I don't go for labels. I'm so sick of it. I don't care, whatever. Call me whatever you want. Just don't... I'm done with all this labelism. Anyways, and that's part of the problem, too, is everything's like, a certain label. Like, what exactly are you? Are you this, that, or the other thing? Mm-hmm. In the political sphere, like which wing are you from or whatever. I'm like, look, I'm here to help people. I want to be a good person. I want to represent my constituents. I want to help end poverty. I want to make sure there's a thriving middle class. And we don't I don't hear. When was the last time you heard a candidate come up there and be like, I want to end poverty. I want to work on it. I know that this new AI 2027 that coming up, it's gonna massively increase wealth for our country, potentially. We have this, and then we're going to have a distribution problem. Okay, why don't we finally do what the social scientists have been calling for decades? We have an outdated version of what poverty is. We say that it's based on 3 times a low budget income. Well, we know it, actually, scientists, this is Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is economists, this is the person who even came up with it, Mary Osenberg, Belinsky, I forgot her last name. She even said this. She's like, yeah, it developed that in the 1950s when people were spending money on food, right? You didn't have a lot of health care. Cold water flat was very cheap to get. You didn't have phones and all these other bills. You lived very simple. About a third of your money went for food. And I don't know, do you remember, at least this is what I remember. I grew up in Connecticut, grew up in a little bit of a different environment, but I remember steak being very expensive when I was young.
Yes.
And I go into the grocery store today and I look at a steak and it's not nearly, I think, as expensive as it was comparatively when I was a kid.
That's the key word there, comparatively, yeah.
Right, comparatively. Right. I mean, when you adjust it
when you go back to the turn of the 1900s, lobster was super cheap.
Yeah.
It was the poor person's food. Lobster was a poor person's food. Now it's a rare delicacy.
So you have this poverty line, which doesn't exist really well. And I have been arguing, one of the things I would love to see is that and the argument has been that nobody wants to take responsibility for poverty increasing. So if we increase poverty line, then we're going to take responsibility for it. So I say, one of the things I think we should do is we should say, okay, let's do that other 2 times the food budget and make that our universal basic income. Call it a digressive tax, whatever. Don't gut the social safety nets. Keep them all in there. Keep the funding at the same level. Why have we allowed the Andrew Yangs, Elon Musk of this world to determine what our viewpoint on how we're going to reform the social safety nets are going to be? We run with it. We'll get rid of all the social safety nets and just introduce universal basic income. I disagree. I think we should have universal. I think, why don't we put something together? If we're going to get this technology, and we're going to have 10, 15, 20%, we need to have idealism. We need to say, okay, look, there's this AI revolution that's going to come, whether we like it or not. There's also going to be a lot with automation. Mm-hmm. And we need to have a bright, positive future for that. That means a 4-day work week, right? We can go down. Bernie's put forth a 32-hour work bill.
Yes.
For this, right? But where are Democrats really putting, I think what really captured people about Bernie Sanders was the fact that he put together on his webpage a comprehensive plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went
very
to school,
much modeled after FDR's economic Bill of Rights, the second Bill of Rights.
Right. I went to school and studied policy, but I was writing those type of platforms without even an education in it. and then you're supposed to tell me you have some like PhD in it, and you can't put together a platform like that. I just this is where do we you bring out the point of, are we just bad at messaging? I'm gonna maybe make a rhetorical question. Are we even messaging at all? like are we messaging around
not in any consistent fashion
around AI? What is our message around AI?
Yeah. Not
you know
in
what our primary message is that it's going to cause bad environmental impact. Do you know what actually the International Agency of Energy, the IEA, I forget what it stands for, the acronym, they said that for every, because AI is going to be able to make our grids work very efficiently that humans cannot do the capacity of, that actually when depending on they have two models, okay? One model says it's going to reduce it, the net reduction is going to be 4 times the amount it produces, or on the low side, it's 3 times the amount it produces. So actually AI is going to reduce our climate change problem. But we're out here messaging it as if it's going to make the climate change worse. I don't know what to say about that. Because I'm not seeing the facts of it. I'm like, yes, it is the production of the AI is taking more energy. But companies it's a very computations that we can't do for our energy efficiency. And by the way, that does not include they didn't include the home efficiencies that people are going to be able to do, which is, it could be as much as 10% of your, I forget which one that was. I think homes could be potentially in some areas as much as 40% reduction. This is a net reduction in our carbon footprint, according to what the research shows. And yet our messaging is oh, AI is going to just, I don't know. This is where I don't even know if we have our facts straight sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to message if you don't have your facts straight. Absolutely.
Yeah, but where is the messaging, right? What is our primary messaging on AI? I hear all the time is it's just going to create this environmental impact. So I was really concerned about that. So I started doing some research on it and okay, well, how do we balance it and everything? And that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can understand some people maybe in your local environment not wanting a power plant. I understand that. That is legitimate concerns. Do I think we should be doing it with renewables? Yes. We shouldn't be going to war with Canada right now because we should be actually using has a lot of ability to do hydropower that could power that AI. But we have 47 in the White House who decides to go to war with Canada because Russia wants it, and Russia doesn't want us to have hydropower from Canada. What do you think that's all about? It's all about Russia knowing that Canada could supply America with renewable energy and would hurt
Russian
oil.
Mm-hmm.
You know? That's such a stupid thing to go to war with Canada. What? I mean, just think about that for a moment. Canadians? I think that was the one of the things I'm out of any?
Of all the nations on Earth
I am not I love Canada. I love Canadians. I love having our neighbor up there. I loved the fact that we were with NAFTA and you could just freely live there and do all this stuff and be integrated with it. I never even think about Canada much in any ways of policy. I served in the military, okay? All I've thought about was that they gave 158 Canadians gave their life in the aftermath of 9/11. How many Russians? 0.
Right.
47's kissing up to Putin and going to war with the person. Oh, these were people who put their life on the line after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's just, these are, do they remember what happened? All these countries that he's picking wars with? You know? I get it. Yeah, I think we should have our NATO. Europe does need to spend more on defense. I don't think, I'll be honest with you, I don't think we should be supporting Europe anymore. It's not the 1940s. We do need to reduce military spending. We cannot be a $14 trillion economy, be subsidizing their defense.
Well, the big brutal bill increases defense spending to over $1 trillion per year.
I know.
Half of the defense budget is privatized, goes to private corporations, and I don't mean private
course.
corporations just because we're buying military equipment from private corporations who are manufacturing it, but private in that privatized, that soldiers don't cook for themselves anymore. You don't build your own tents anymore, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, but my understanding, they want to cut the troop size.
Well, we also know that Project 2025 calls for the elimination of the Veterans Administration, something that should be hit, something that should hit terribly, terribly close to you.
It is horrible. I mean, right now under Trump, the VA is suffering horrendously, and they're like, oh well, we're not cutting this, that, or the other thing. Do you know how many wraparound services they're cutting? Over 80,000 employees they want to cut. I've talked with the people at the VA off the record, and one of a provider said it was very hard before. We just did not have enough wraparound services, and now they're going away completely, and they're horrified. My providers, I hear from people there. I won't want to name names or anything. Protect them.
Yeah, let's protect the innocent.
Yeah, and I have people who are, it's the run into me at the grocery store. I happen to live near the VA, live right near my VA. And I happen to see some people at my grocery store, and it's really great because we had a little conversations. They all know me. I've made it very clear, you need to talk with me about this stuff. And it is just, these are benefits that they earned. You get injured in war, your body, I'm speaking from personal experience, your body is dealing with the effects of war. You made a sacrifice. That compensation is only helping you. It's not making you completely 100% whole. And you want to go in there and you want to gut them so that you can give your friends more business in the DoD.
Or tax cuts.
And tax cuts. Well, that's where the VA money's going. It's going into DoD contractors who are people who...
It's forcing soldiers into private insurance.
Yeah.
Into profitable private insurance, into the private insurance, quote-unquote, health insurance industry.
How are we going to deal with this in the midst of a hospital shutdown? Did you read what the... I mean, you...
Well, what about... But think of it this way, though. The nurses who are employed by the health insurance industry to help determine... The AI, by the way, that is employed by the health insurance industry to help determine... or not even help sometimes, just flat out determine what care you qualify for and don't qualify for. How do you explain post-traumatic stress disorder to an AI bot as you seek counseling and help for your PTSD? Not you specifically, but you veterans as a whole seek help for PTSD, and an AI chatbot decides, I don't even understand the question, let alone say yes to the answer. How does an AI determine what PTSD is? I'm not sure the medical community can still fully determine and define what PTSD is, let alone artificial intelligence, and then whether you would qualify for coverage under your private for-profit plan to be cared for it.
Right. That's a interesting question.
We already know that the human middle people are saying, no, that's very expensive treatment, so we think you don't have PTSD, therefore you don't qualify, therefore we won't cover it, let alone an automated artificial...
Here's the problem, too, I think, with that, is an AI system is going to basically be an algorithm. And it's going to be what you put into it.
Right.
And if they want to pay less benefits, they can put in parameters, right? And so it can be like, okay, we want to cut spending by $1 billion, so we're going to say that these groups of symptoms... So it is the PTSD question is really hard. Let me give you some context with it. You have a scale, I think PTSD, at least when I remember, it starts at 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100%, okay? As a percentage of it that you get in disability. So if you have an AI system that's not a medical doctor analyzing it, and it's being trained to, there's, you know, a 50-50 odd that it goes to 50% or 70%, right?
Right.
You can manipulate that AI system to make the automatically go to 50%.
To drop. To cut.
Diagnostic, I will say this to AI, it depends. Typically, actually, the best is when you're kind of working with a person with it, because AI can pick up on some things that that person might overlook. AI can always be a great second opinion. You can train a lot of the robots to do that, and there can be better actually health outcomes with it, because a doctor may have missed something. So I think it's great more for augmentation, great for recording notes, and it really should be used so that doctors spend more time with their patients, not less. Right? We should be clearing them up and using it in the right way. And I think that's part of the vision. Like, what is our AI medical vision like? I think we need more patient-centered care. AI can do a lot of the bureaucratic courses, like creating medical notes. It's actually really good at that, right? Doctors don't need to be spending time behind their computer, right? We want them there physically with us, being able to talk to us, right? We don't want somebody who's standing behind a computer checking out the questions. There's, you know, there are ways that actually can improve that. But to your question, I think that's the risk that I see it as. Somebody being in there and without the human looking through all those kind of little dynamics of it. You know what I mean? The other thing and the other thing I will say with VA is that it's a rating for mental health. It's not for PTSD itself. Very interesting. So you get a mental health rating. So you can't say I have major depression and I have PTSD. You're going to get a mental health rating. You can't claim it two separate things. So that's where a lot of nuances comes in, where they have to look at the whole of it and not just the diagnosis for PTSD. So that's where it is a very complex thing. I think that, you know, that is something that is an interesting thing. I haven't heard somebody specifically say that's what they're planning to do. I haven't seen that in there, but it would be an interesting, there are some dilemmas. Those are the dilemmas I would think would be there.
On the subject of healthcare, you and I, along with an overwhelming majority, if not unanimity, which was, you know, how often does that happen inside the Democratic Party? Helped to pass a resolution at our last meeting in support of universal health care. Tell the folks about it.
Sure. So basically there has been over 36 since 2016 rural hospitals closing. And that includes Krosner Hospital just last month in Delaware County. And I'm out in Chester County, closer to the Lancaster County border line. And even out here, we're feeling the impact of that hospital closing. It's having such a ripple effect. Okay?
The entire Crozier system, I think, closed down. It was 14
yes.
different locations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So that's
right.
30. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Well, I know, I in the resolution, I think it was the whole system's closing, but that hospital was one of the big ones. You know, you got these middle management with these pharmaceutical benefit
managers.
Right?
Yep.
Right? It's pulling profit out of the system. That's leading to fewer services, more, and causing more closures. And this is really a disaster for that OB/GYN and primary care. It really is. And so healthcare really is unstable right now. It is in crisis for patients, providers, and communities across the Commonwealth. Now, the ACA was a huge step, you know, and it was expanded under Biden. But I want to be clear, those expansions done under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, expire next year. Guess what, folks? Your premium going up. It's going to be a disaster.
And it won't be a subtle increase either. It'll be dramatic. It'll be dramatic. There'll be dramatic
And
increases.
even with that, we're still not at universal coverage.
No.
People are still falling through the cracks.
Mhm.
There's medical debt, and people are losing access to care. And you know what's making things worse? Republicans keep attacking. The Trump administration Republicans' proposals continue to attack the ACA, Medicare, VA, of course, but also remember public health funding as well, which is really, I think, a really critical thing. We have a sickness health system, right? We do not have the health system that we need focused on the wellness. And Trump's
we have a health industry.
Yes.
Right, and it isn't. You are correct. I mean, we're mincing words, I guess, a little bit. It's a little bit of semantics, but it is the truth. It's not a health care system. We're not caring about people's health. We're actually discarding people's health for the sake of profit. So I would tend to call it. It's a health based, I guess, if you will, industry.
The term people
it's a for-profit industry.
Is a sickness management system focused on maximizing value for the shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of the terminology they use in public health. But let's go back. But talk about Medicaid cuts. It's going to devastate our hospitals, healthcare access to everyone, not just the people who are on it, right? And so one of the solutions is really going to be, we want to really see universal healthcare for Pennsylvania. I am ecstatic about that. It's something I fundamentally believe. We have to introduce legislation right here in Pennsylvania, and that could serve as a national model. A state level universal healthcare system, we could focus on reducing costs for family, businesses, and taxpayer while ensuring everybody gets covered. I think we need to look at these new AI things as they reduce costs and say, hey, you know what? We're going to introduce that, but we're going to make sure everybody gets healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. Unfortunately, Governor Shapiro is facing a $500 million federal funding healthcare shortfall, and so we at the party we're looking for bold solutions. I guess we're asking our lawmakers to start serious work on expanding universal healthcare. Healthcare is a right; it's not a privilege. But I'm here to bring really just a reality check. Under Trump, this is going to be a nightmare. Our healthcare system is imploding as it is, as we just talked about, and it's going to go from bad to worse. I am in. All right, I don't even know. I'm in a state of almost mourning over what's going to happen to our healthcare system.
It would seem to me that among the major donors to the Republican corporation are the sickness management industry and big pharma.
Yeah.
At the same time, that same Republican corporation seems to be moving the country back to a time, I'm going to say at best, the 1890s, where you only got to see a doctor if you could afford it. There was no insurance, there was no coverage, there was no employer-based insurance. None of that existed. That if you were sick, you suffered. You could only see a doctor if you can afford it, or if that doctor was, the family visit you at your house black bag doctor who might be kind enough to visit you as a charity.
And I have a message for those people.
So
I have a message for those people.
That's an ironic sort of thing to me, that
if you do not have enough providers on coverage, if you think you're going to go back to the 1890s, you're going to go back to 1890s medicine. Go back there. Go back there, and if you want to live in 1890s medicine, make sure that any medicine made after 1891, you are excluded from. When you want to go to for-profit hospitals, when you're very sick, and you get a major diagnosis, don't you dare take a step in an Ivy League institution. You hate them so much, never go to one again in your life when you're sick. Now you're changing your tone. Nobody wants to go. When you have a major illness, where are you going to want to go to?
The best hospital you can.
Penn Medicine, right?
Yeah, Penn, right.
Penn, right? Everybody wants to go to an Ivy League medicine school. I lived in Connecticut. Everybody wanted to go to Yale. Oh, it's funny, when the shoe's on your foot, all of a sudden you change your complete tune.
The number of
Why are this is just, you know what, this is actually just plain stupidity. These people are just being stupid. They're being stupid. They want to feed their own propaganda. They're not thinking the things through, and they're making horrible decisions. I'm done trying to figure out. Part of it's just being stupid. You're just angry because your kid didn't get into the school I wanted. That's I think a lot of it. You know what I mean?
I just find the irony that such big money contributions come from this sector, but yet we seem to be running this sector out of business to a point, like I said, to a point where you can only get it if you can afford it, and that's got to affect the industry in some way, shape, or form. I'm also, didn't Josh Hawley go to Yale? Didn't Ted Cruz go to Harvard? Are they both
Trump went to Penn.
Are they both Northeastern?
So did Elon Musk.
Are they both Northeastern elites who hate everybody? I find it ironic how that doesn't seem to happen. We don't seem to call them that, even though they've done the exact same thing. The number of conservatives, or self-identified conservatives, self-identified Republicans, because I really don't think there are any real ones. I think there are self-identified ones, either because that's what their parents were, or because that's what Fox has convinced them that they are, who have called Social Security a scam. And so then I'll ask them, may I have your Social Security card?
Yeah.
Oh, well, what do you want that for? Let's burn that thing and get you out of the system right now. I'm not going to do that. I paid into it. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And that's exactly why it's not a scam, because you paid into it.
Yeah.
You
know what it is?
Within three questions, you can knock that one down, but they can't figure that out for themselves.
But you know what? Here's the problem, I think, with that, and this is where I'm messaging, is like, that person isn't communicating to the other people, right? Like, we got to be out there talking to people who we need to be talking to sometimes. I think I wonder sometimes, even like when we try to go on Fox News, but yet we're not going to go on a podcast. You know what I mean? Like going on Fox News, but not going on Joe Rogan. Well, Joe Rogan, people are all over the place, right? Like, isn't it better to go on Joe Rogan than it is to go on Fox News when we already know, like...
Yeah, but how did Joe Rogan go from a Bernie Sanders supporter to a Trump supporter? Because of Fox News, or because he has no core beliefs, or both?
I think
I'd be wary to go there too.
This is what I would say.
Somebody who can travel that far a distance from left to right, and so much so that he damn near circled back on himself.
You never grew up in Connecticut. Yeah, obviously.
I mean, I'd be worried about that too.
You're not from New England.
No, I'm not. I'm from New Jersey.
Vermont votes in Republican governors and Bernie Sanders for their senator.
Yes, they do.
Now, granted, it's very different style, flavor of Republican.
Right.
But this is part of the disconnect, because we're thinking, like, this is where I think it is. We're looking at it from our perspective, and we need to go out and to see things more broader sometimes and figure out, okay, so what really is this? What is this kind of change? You know, where is this stuff going and all this stuff? To see that there needs to be some kind of change in the country. And have we really been able to articulate that well? And I do think our resolution, even though it's small and humble, and it's maybe a little bit symbolic, I think it was a good place to start. You know what I mean? I think it was a good place to actually say, hey, look, we are as a party trying to do something here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think it was a good resolution that I'm proud to have supported. And
it was a moralistic stand. It was taking a stand.
Yes.
For all these people who scream about the Democrats don't take a stand on anything, we just took a stand on something, damn it. We took a stand that you deserve to see a doctor, for God's sake, and that your ability to pay for it is irrelevant. It's a human right.
Yeah.
A basic human right, a very fundamental one.
Do you think so if you've noticed our media, it starts around House of Cards time. maybe a little bit. I'm going to go into cultural critique here. Starting around with House of Cards, our television shows got very dark.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our media is very like I remember Stargate. Stargate. The last one,
Atlantis,
Destiny, I think it was called.
Yeah.
It was very dark. Remember, it was like, I don't know if you watched that show, but this was this time period. It kind of like changed. So it's in sci-fi. It's across the board. Have we lost idealism? Like, in an idealistic view is what I kind of, and even though I know I'm optimistic, I understand there are major risks with this AI coming out. I'm not trying to undermine that, this could cause, the report open, AI 2027. Daniel Cocotinel was a former OpenAI employee who led the project. So that's where I was getting the OpenAI from. They're really showing this risk and talking about potentially 10 to 20% unemployment rates by the end of the Trump term. Which, how is that going to, I'm getting off topic here. My fear with that is, with a fascist at 15% unemployment rate.
Mm-hmm. You're ripe for revolution.
Yeah, what is Trump going to do, to declare an emergency and try to make himself a dictator over it?
Well, like I said, I think we're seeing a Trump.
That's just a fear of mine. I think we need to be having a game plan for that. That's why I want to have this discussion about AI, because I wonder if that's their kind of backhand plan. Well, we'll introduce all this AI and then we can just, figure out ways to control people with it.
Right. Let me reset again. We're at 8:05 Eastern Time. We've entered the final minutes. I don't know if it's going to be a full hour, but we're the final stage, shall we say, chapter of the program for this particular week. It is June 8th, and this is the Kennedy Effect live with you for this June 8th, this Sunday evening. We are live right now on the Facebook pages of Our Revolution Pennsylvania, Hot101.net, TCP Media Group, and of course Ghost Club Productions Radio. Our Facebook group is the Kennedy Effect on Facebook. YouTube channels, GCPR.live, and that other side of information. The radio version of the program, of course, blasting out across Hot101.net. Our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app, as well as telling Alexa to play Hot101.net. GCPR.live, our website, and fully functional Android app with an Apple app on the way. A special hello to our listeners and viewers outside the United States. Please feel free to drop us a comment, a first name, and where you might be listening from, especially if you're on our video platforms. If you're on the radio side, I realize you can't maybe not get to the chat there, but we would love to know where you're listening from all over the globe. We are entering our final stage of the program with Christopher Kowerdovich. A couple more topics that we're going to get to before we wrap it up. Now, for those of you at Hot101.net, when we leave the airwaves, the music returns to you immediately. For those of you at GCPR.live, from 8:30, 8:40, 8:45, the pregame show for The Villain's View begins. The show goes full throttle from 9 p.m. Conversations with T. Nathan from 11 p.m. and Thomas kicks off your broadcast work week tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. with the sound of coffee, a fresh, full, steaming hot pot of the sound of coffee from tomorrow. It sounds so disgusting when I say it that way, and it makes me giggle because I'm a little child and I think it's cute. From tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. Again, hot101.net, when we leave the airways, the music returns. GCPR, the pregame show for The Villain's View, could be as early as 8:30, 8:40, 8:45. Full throttle from 9. Conversations with T. Nathan from 11. Thomas tomorrow morning from 8 with the sound of coffee. Bettina says in the chat, the irony, if I can fill in a couple extra words for Bettina and not completely butcher her quote, but kind of fill in a few words here. The irony of the health of the sickness management industry, they can only make a profit if we can afford to go to the hospitals. If we can't afford to go to the hospitals don't make profit. Randall says that Trump has it out for Harvard because they rejected him as a student. I actually didn't know that, to be honest, but that's sitting right there. Yeah.
Well, they also rejected Bannon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bannon. Speaking of The Walking Dead, I didn't know. I didn't know zombies could be that heavy. But I mean, anyway, one of the things that I watched the 4-minute video that you had sent me offline about AI 2027, and one of the parts that I found most disturbing is that now the 4.5-minute video references a 3-hour-long podcast, which I did not partake in between the time that you sent it. But that said, this 4.5-minute sort of distilled version, one of the things that I found most disturbing in it is that AI is rapidly developing the ability to improve upon itself.
Yes.
That would sound to me like sentience. So how much further beyond that does the sentient AI determine that we are no longer necessary? And that sounds very much like the Matrix to me. Or Terminator. Or...
Yes. So, did you know, interestingly about the Matrix, originally, the machines were about being AI. But this is what I've heard. Somebody told me this, and they told me that the author originally wanted to write about AI, but we didn't understand it enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the thought was that there needed to be not for the energy, but for our brain capacities, because they needed the humans to check the AI work.
Okay.
So they created the
rather
Matrix.
than the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you still needed some organic intelligence.
The movie does reference artificial intelligence, but it doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
It's not neck deep in it the way the original story.
Yes.
Concept, maybe I should
because
say.
they originally weren't like the heat source thing. That was like a little odd, right? Like, why would you need humans for heat? You know what I mean?
Right.
But it was more the organic memory capacity and stuff.
And actually, electrical energy. It's electrical impulses that
yeah.
we hope are bouncing around up here. If everything's functioning, if we're thinking,
So, sorry, got off track. Was there a question there?
No, I just wanted your thoughts about the. You sent me that video.
It is a major risk with that.
That just sounds like sentience to me. When you.
Yeah, it does.
I know that we think of these things as purely emotional, but when humans hope, when we aspire, when we create, when we learn, when we go to school to learn, especially schooling that we choose to do, as you go for your masters and as folks go for their doctorates, and sometimes multiple masters and multiple doctorates, that we choose to learn, that we make the choice, not just the K through 12, but when we make a conscious decision to further education. That is when we lose weight, when we buy new clothes, when we change our hairstyle or shave or don't shave, choose a different car to drive. These are all different forms of self-improvement. And they, to me, at least, not being a scientist by any means, they denote sentience. So it would seem to me that if an AI program has developed the ability to improve upon itself, that it is then in a form being hopeful and aspirational and therefore sentient.
Well,
and where do we get lost?
Searching for meaning.
Where do we get lost in the
in the
mix there?
Where I would say philosophically, is will it create a crisis of meaning for the AI? Is meaning defined by this is my task to do and I'm a computer and it just executes it, and it doesn't really have that search that's going on for meaning? It's going to be, or is it meaning just described? Right. That's really where. Will it stay, the question say, will it stay true to its mission to the hallucinations? Have you ever heard about AI hallucinations? It's when it kind of goes off its kind of like script and goes in its own direction. That's where a lot of the concern has started to be flagged originally with it.
Well, I remember the story of Facebook using an earlier form of AI to create this sort of what would have been an AI profile. And the profile was built on a conglomeration of existing Facebook profiles. And within a matter of days, it had become so violent and so racist that it had to be shut down. There was also, I believe Facebook did this experiment as well, but I am not certain of that, folks. It could have been Google. It could have been somebody else. Please don't quote me. But I do think this was a Facebook meta experiment. There were two separate AI programs doing two separate things, but found each other in the mainframe, and then began to coordinate and plan their escape to get outside the closed mainframe and get out into the global internet. And they had to be shut down. It was, George is telling me in the chat that it was Google that did that. And they had a problem shutting them down because the AIs were trying to protect themselves.
Yeah.
To stay, quote unquote, alive. So when an AI program develops the ability to rewrite its own code and improve upon itself, I would say, therefore, aspire and want and create and seek self-improvement, that's sentience. And then we're not far away from being irrelevant. Or at least for the AIs to determine we're the problem. What's AI that has developed sentience, what's the solution to global warming? No more humans. Because you can't be trusted. What's the solution to the threat of global thermonuclear war? Humans. You're the problem. Don't we all seem... What's the problem of overpopulation? Humans. Don't we all seem to... Doesn't the problem always seem to come back to us? In which case... I mean, that's the thing that I took away from the video that you sent me, is that they're writing themselves improvement, and therefore we're not too far away from becoming irrelevant or becoming labeled the problem to everything, or the root cause of every problem.
It's a major risk. And
it was Stephen Hawking that said it's not his greatest fear for the end of humanity was not an asteroid strike. It was not even climate change or nuclear war. It was artificial intelligence. It was the machines taking over.
Yeah.
I just got a headline pop up from Reuters that the U.S. troops in Los Angeles have made their first arrests. Troops making arrests. I just want to throw that out there. A kid popped up to me from Reuters. I thought I would throw it out there because I didn't mean to derail you. My apologies. I just
it's just
wanted to put that out there. I will see if the Guardian is also saying that. I don't see that yet on the Guardian, and I don't see it yet on the Associated Press, but Reuters is reporting that they have made their first arrests. Protests intensify in Los Angeles after Trump deploys hundreds of National Guard troops. Let me see if this is updated at all. This was updated about a half an hour ago.
Did they say who was the arresting officer?
No. In fact, the beginning of the article is the same one that I was reading when you joined us, so I don't have anything new about the arrests or about there being arrests so far. Not yet.
The wild card is I don't know how it works if they are military police. I don't know. I just don't know. That's a point that I would
well, can you subject civilians to military justice? That would seem anathema to me.
Well, no, but like, kind of, if it's like under the Constitution, you know what I mean? Like, are you arresting them because of a federal law? You know what I mean? And they have the jurisdiction. I don't know how that jurisdiction works. That's something I don't know.
Right.
Because like, yeah, because I would yeah, because military police, the police on force, if there's a civilian on there too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very gray area that I don't have an expert point on. I think we'll just have to wait and see how the story develops to get more information. I don't know. I really just don't know. Like,
so let me.
It's crazy though. It's what I find interesting is I'm not prepared for this scenario. So it's like they're going into new territory. I'm just not even. That many of us are probably not even prepared for at this moment.
Is that why you think sometimes the reaction is so slow from, quote unquote, from our side of the aisle, which I don't think is always, our responsibility. I think any well-meaning American would be bothered by what's happening in Los Angeles and should be concerned about the proliferation of this across the country. Do you think sometimes, that's why our reaction is so slow, because we're thinking to ourselves, we're taking a bit of natural human time to sit back and go, wow, I can't believe this is happening. I don't even know what to think about this. I don't know how to react to this yet.
And I think
that lag of time is kind of costing us to an extent.
I think that's a sword that cuts two ways, right? Because when we overreact to something, like there is a situation, and then what Republicans will do, what the right-wing media will do, is be like, Democrats accused of us this is not what it is, and they're going to make the whole story about it, right?
Crying,
and they're going to bring in an expert, and they're just going to go for hours and hours because we jumped on a story, right? We're going to jump on, this is the latest and greatest story, so we're going to go with it, and we make a mix up, and so it can go both ways with it, I think.
Bettina mentions in the chat, I don't think we last as long as the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing, but only because I think you might be right. Only because I think you're right. Let me ask you just about, as we've been ending our Sunday show roughly around 8:30 lately, usually because my brain is empty and I run out of things to talk about. So I want to make sure that I ask you this before 8:30. I think it's a little bit of I told you so and a little bit of I gotcha, and it's not the intention of my question, but I want to ask you about it anyway. We were speaking earlier about dividing us down into smaller and smaller groups. I think that's why you've seen the war on trans people that you've seen, because they're a small group and it's very difficult for them to defend themselves. Exit polling would tell us that 60% of veterans voted for Trump. And now we see what that is bringing to the misery of veterans. How do you justify those two things, or how do you address veterans that come to you and say, if they say to you at all, yeah, I voted for him, I didn't think this was going to happen? It would seem to me then you weren't listening. Or at a minimum, if you couldn't read the entire 114 pages or 912 pages of Project 2025, you didn't even bother to look at one of those little 3.5-minute YouTube synopses of it. It's right there in Project 2025 to shut down the VA.
How does a think tank, we're going on and on about this. That's a very abstract thing. I think we're worried about Project 2025 for a moment here. Mm-hmm. But to get your average voter, to get them concerned about Project 2025, that is a very wonky, technical thing for people to understand. And it's very hard for people who are not engaged at the level that we are in.
If so many folks are getting their news from Facebook and YouTube and sources like that, there were plenty of very short, synthesized.
Are they seeing it in their algorithms or in bubbles?
There's a fair question.
If you so you were in the military, and then they spent a ton of money advertising to you about it.
Yes,
and
they
then
did.
And then you're a veteran. They look at it. Do you know how much money? Let me tell you. I got 15 robocalls. I got a dozen pieces of literature for Donald Trump. I probably got maybe 3 or 4. I would say a 4-to-1 ratio was my communication. 80% of me.
Okay, well, how much those things cost. How much did the Trump campaign spend on you, Christopher? do you think, roughly? I mean, you know what a mailer costs. You've run campaigns.
Yeah. I mean,
how much money do you think they spent on you?
You're at least spending $20 on me.
With just the mailers and the robocall calls?
Yeah.
And the Harris campaign spent $5 on you? You said it was 4 to 1. So I know it's a bit of an abstract. I'm asking because I think it's interesting.
She didn't do any robocalls, so she probably maybe more like $6 or $7. Once again, it's not cost efficient.
Right. So you think the Trump campaign spent about $20 on you, plus or minus. Mm-hmm. The Harris campaign spent about $7, even though that same research that the Trump campaign would have done on you, telling them that you're a veteran, would also have told them that you're a Democratic supervoter, and should have told them that you're a member state committee, and on and on and on.
Jeff, they have so much money.
They could afford to spend it on you.
It didn't matter.
Right, okay.
That's what's horrifying me about all this. Yeah, I don't think veterans voted for this.
Mm-hmm.
But if me, a super Dem, imagine what did they spend on a kind of not that engaged veteran? Your average person who's not that engaged. And those commercials were good. Oh, they were good.
You know what I thought was really effective? Very simple. I'm very old-fashioned. I happen to believe in yard signs. Mm-hmm. I think they raise voter awareness. I truly do. I think they raise voter awareness in the very simple vein that voters then remember there's an election. I thought that series of yard signs that said very simple things: Trump safe border, Harris open border. Trump low taxes, yes. Harris high tax. I thought they were exceptionally.
2025.
Yeah.
We're trying to talk about Project 2025.
Yeah.
Person's lost after trying to understand what this is, but this isn't Trump's campaign. This is some document that Trump said he's not supporting.
Even though he's named it at every 3 pages.
But that's.
No, I understand.
Every 3 pages, right?
I understand what you mean.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I understand what you mean. I'm just countering
so we were focused on that a lot. We focused a lot of our energy on against Project 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think. Did you see that truck when we were driving out? It was right before one of this beautiful church. Out going on 76. Did you take 76 part of the way out to the state committee? Yes,
absolutely.
And it said,
I think everybody
Democrats, Trump, and it listed 7 different things.
Oh yes, yes. That's been, by the way,
pro-life.
That thing's been sitting there for probably. I first saw it probably 5 years ago, so it's been sitting there for a very long time.
I think that's where
we're missing it.
Yeah.
But how do you explain Medicare for all on a bumper sticker? There's just more to it.
Healthcare is a human right. Yeah, healthcare is a human right. That's what didn't we even say that in the resolution, I think?
Yeah.
Healthcare is a right. Just healthcare is a right. Or Medicare for all, don't get caught without health insurance.
Yeah.
Very simple. Very easy.
And I'll tell you what, I think the reason that the right and the corporations and the rich and on and on and on and the sickness management industry and big pharma are so against Medicare for all, as I can just tell you from my own experience. I'm 56. If I could buy into Medicare, I'd do it yesterday. I would have done it. I would do the instant I was able to do it. I'd do it. I'd buy into Medicare in a flipping heartbeat. In a blink of an eye, I would do it. Because the fear and the stress that it would take away from me.
Yeah.
Even with the 20% donut hole, I would still be better off. And I would do it yesterday. I would do it just, yeah. We're
it's
approaching.
Ironic the party of choice doesn't want to give us a choice on that.
Well, there's never a choice. It's always profit first.
Yeah.
There's never a choice. In the former political party known as Republicans, there's no choice. It's profit first, always.
Yeah.
Profit and power. Always first and last. Oh, did you visit
One of my
her?
furry friends wants to say hello before we get off.
Another. Oh,
A different one.
I was watching the cat that came in at the beginning was laying then behind you by the filing cabinet for the longest time until giving up and finally leaving the room. Well, as we approach 8:30, is there any thoughts that we didn't get a chance to touch on, or anything that you didn't get to fully suss out, or I cut you off and rudely, as I often do, unfortunately?
One of the things I was going to say was, I think part of all this protest, don't know if I covered this, was they didn't want coverage of the veteran protest. And this
we didn't talk at all about the veterans protest. We should have.
I think part of this is Donald Trump is scared. I think it's starting.
Well, tell
to really
people about, if they're not aware what the veterans protest is, please, if you wouldn't mind.
So we had a D-Day. We did a D-Day protest, and I just thought it was interesting that he wanted to do this whole there's a riot in this LA during the news cycle, and I think part of it was deliberate to really try to get a lot of energy, to get a story. There was a lot of bad news stories out there.
I think this fight with Musk has been generated. I think that's manufactured.
It could be.
Press.
I put it. This is what I say.
The man knows how to run a reality show.
I like to know what I know, and I do not know what's going on in the mind of Musk. So with Musk, I think the best thing to do is just put it as a wild card, and I can make assumptions about Musk, but we're gonna have to wait and see.
What happened at the protest? What can you tell people about the protest? What kind of speakers were there? What was the tone of it? How well attended was it?
I think you've seen a lot of. We had some everything. It was a really great protest we had here in Pennsylvania. We had everything from veterans of color, women, men, LGBT members, and we also had a Gold Star family member. We had family members. A lot of it was a concern with. What's going on with VA? You asked a question, the future of the VA, and I want to answer that with Trump. It's very glim. What's the care? That's what matters. It's not the VA itself, the bureaucracy. But I'm concerned about the care the veterans get, and I look at all the cuts is very dangerous to them, and that's really where people were out there and they were protesting it, and one of the news reporters asked me, I just don't understand why they would cut veterans benefits, and this is just a middle of the road news reporter, and I just I'm like, honestly, for a little bit it's not something I'm very prepared for. I wasn't prepared for. I'm stepping up to the moment. What I mean is I can adapt to the moment very well to it, but it was not something. Veterans issues used to have bipartisan support.
You didn't have that one on your bingo card, so to speak.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I knew there would come a time when there would be a climate of a Republican who would just. I
think it's simple.
Screw it over. I just have seen it happen before. They like to screen bipartisanship, but then when it comes to actually going in and funding the fundamental stuff, they always get squirmish, or they try to. Well, could we make some cuts to the Guard? Could we do this? Could we make it more? They always try to reduce it. They'll go with a program, but they always want to reduce it.
Well, they're corporate owners. That's exactly what the corporate owners want.
So it's they want to say, well, look, we passed this great bill for veterans, but you look at the Democratic version of it, and then the one that the watered down version. Now they're just going we're just going to cut it. We're just going to cut everything. It's the 2025 is our year, and we're going to do whatever we want.
Randall is asking me at the chat if he's allowed to call in. Are you willing to take a phone call?
I am.
So go ahead, sir. 267-227-9189 is the phone number. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. 8, 9. Were the D-Day protests nationwide, or did you have...
Yes, we had them nationwide. The big one in D.C., it was United for Veterans, United for America was the name of the protest. I had some really nice... A historian came in. He serves with us on state committee, Brian McGinnis. Well, he has a history degree. I don't know what the qualifications to be a technical historian is. I think he's a historian. He gave a beautiful speech on remembering D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
And, it made me really think, like, this isn't the first time America had to stand up for stuff like this. This isn't the first time. And we gotta have the courage. I think we've got to have the courage to do the right thing.
Where will you be on No King's Day?
I will be at one of the protests. I do not know which one I will be at this moment. I might be in Reading or I might be in Westchester.
Okay.
I also don't... I always leave I'm leaving it open because if there is at a protest, I'm always open just to begin a protest.
I'm looking over your left shoulder again.
Oh, yeah. Hi, boys. My boys are running around. There he goes. He wants to be in the picture there. He wants to be in the picture there. I always try to keep protest days prepared with a backup speech in case people cancel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, if there's somebody calls me, they were to call me from Delaware County, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I believe being a chair, you should be available for those type of things.
Right.
I take this work I do politically seriously. I'm not trying to throw people under the bus, but I don't know if everybody does.
Oh, I don't think you're throwing anybody under the bus. I think that's just a fact of it. I think there's folks.
I really am dedicated my life to this. This is the fight of my life. I think this is, in some way, saving democracy is more of a fight than what I had to do.
Is it? And this might be a very semantical question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty as charged if you believe that it is. I don't. I happen to believe I'm correct about this, but that doesn't mean I am. Are we talking about saving democracy or restoring it? I happen to think we're at the restoring stage. I know we're having elections this year, but are they...
So, I'm going to go back with semantics about it.
Okay. It's fair.
Right? Democracy,
well, it seems to me if you're saving something...
There's many different forms of democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to try to... I think we shouldn't just try to fight to restore what we had. I think we should try to make it even better.
Okay.
So I think what I think we need is ranked choice voting. I honestly think if we had ranked choice voting, Congress would be a very different place.
Yes.
And Trump would have a hard time he wouldn't have his one party to work with.
And it would seem to me that would be the closest way to replicate. Not replicate. Maybe that's not the right word. I can't think of a better one. Imitate? Yeah, that's probably not the right word either. A parliamentary system.
Yes.
When Alexandria,
Australia has one like that.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it would weaken the power of the presidency because if the president comes in with the trifecta, it's his party and kind of can do a lot. And then I think people get frustrated. I think more than people are like, look, it's a bill it's a bill in Congress to get ranked choice voting.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm for it is the most practical solution to doing a major change to our system. But we can also do it at the state level. Maine has done it at the state level.
New York City has it.
Alaska's doing it at the state level. And you know what? And granted, I know she's not perfect. But Murkowski was able to say, hey, listen, Trump, if I do too much, is going to go against me and all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has the ability with ranked choice voting to even run as an independent.
Yeah.
To be able, she has more of the ability to stand up. Now, I wish she could stand up more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I wish she would take better stances. I think there's some great pieces of legislation I've seen that she has been co-sponsored. One of them is community health workers. fabulous piece of legislation that I think we need more than ever. But, she has the ability to sponsor a piece of legislation like that, which would reduce healthcare costs because she has ranked choice voting, right? Like, she's a Republican that is still a Republican, but I could work with and get some stuff done because she has that layer of protection. I think, and it would have been Sarah Palin probably if it wasn't that. Do we want, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't need that. Thank you so much. I think we had
the Republican Party
quite enough of that. Thank you.
Would have primaried her. They would have put a lot of money behind Sarah Palin.
Yeah. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez released her endorsement for mayor of New York, it's a ranked choice voting ballot. She did, because they have ranked choice voting there. So she recommended, here's my first choice, second choice, third, fourth, fifth. I think there was 5. Yeah. 5 or 6, I think, on the ballot. I'm forgetting, but it's I think it's probably the most direct way to somewhat replicate / imitate, somewhere in between those two words, a parliamentary system. And I do think it would free candidates to be a bit more independent. And I don't mean necessarily independent of even the two major parties, but independent within those parties, as well as independent from them, but independent within them.
I will say this is one of the things that maybe some people might not like about this, but it does also tend to put people a little more towards a consensus governance style and ranked choice voting places. You get less of your Marjorie Taylor Greens. And I think there's
a forced moderation in it, in a way, or at least there can be.
Yeah. I mean, you could even, some of the candidates you might really like Progressive Caucus might lose a few seats in it too. It could happen in the House. You know what I mean? I think it moderates people a little bit because more conservative votes start thinking strategically. You know what I mean?
Miss Chrissy on YouTube says that's the thing about healthcare in Canada. If I end up in the hospital, I don't have to worry about being homeless and having no money when I get out.
Yeah.
What a terribly simple and yet revolutionary idea all at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something. This might be a semantical argument too. By the way, Randall, you're running out of time. If you don't call soon, I'm ending this program, and you are SOL.
I'm here till 9. I don't care.
You're SOL, my friend. Here. You have a flag hanging up behind you.
Yes.
I have I've begun to make it a habit to wear Captain America on all my programs. The right doesn't own these things.
Nope.
But yet they seem to either think they do or have convinced a hell of a lot of people that they do. They don't own the military. They don't own the flag. They don't own Captain America. They don't own faith. I went to church this morning surrounded by Democrats.
Yep.
Why has, I don't think just the Democratic Party, but why has society, why has the media allowed this usurpation of these very basic symbols?
I'm going to need a few minutes to kind of go through this in depth for a little bit of an answer to this question, because it's a very important one, but we do need to understand our historical context. So, in the 1960s, there's this thing called the Creative Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes into the world of advertising and marketing. So if you think of an old-timey kind of marketing poster, right? It has a zillion different little fonts on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, like an old-fashioned, Wendy's used to have very old-fashioned, had all the different, like, kind of that old-fashioned kind of
that font, right? That old Western kind of font.
Yeah, right. Like this old type of marketing, or even like a 1920s with kind of like a flapper girl, kind of just like a flapper girl there, and there was a lot of text in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was what marketing was. Marketing was all about that. And then at the time of economic libertarianism, with who was the economist in the 1960s? I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Milton Friedman?
Yes, Milton Friedman time period.
The Chicago School of Economics.
Yes, this is going out in the business world. There's also this thing called the Creative Revolution. That's where you start seeing big popping. You've seen Volkswagen. Think small, right? Show the
Yeah,
little car. In a
Milton
time
Friedman.
period-
Milton Friedman was one of the first to warn the Republican Party and the rich in this country that the middle class is getting too large,
Yes,
and
yes.
that if you were worried about losing your political power, you needed to supplant and crush the middle class.
Yeah. And so what they created was this.
Hang
this
on, Randall.
term.
Just hang on one sec. Let Chris finish this answer, then I'll get to you.
Keep going, keep going.
It was called Art for Capitalism.
Okay.
And it really starts the design school, and you really see a marketing move into a different direction.
Right.
And they start really focusing a lot on the psychology of it. And they're in the business schools. So the design and business schools are together. And there's this culture of very capitalistic aspect to this beautiful artwork. And some of the commercials have been just pieces. There are commercials out there that are pieces of art. I will say I've seen some amazing pieces of art. I take pride in the literature I created. I thought I did a really nice artwork with. I say, Laura Shadle and I, we have this thing we call it Shadle and Kowerdovich. To counter this, I've worked with Laura Shadle on this art for democracy. Going against art for capitalism. It's art for democracy. We need democracy. Capitalism is only ever going to thrive if there is a strong democracy. That's the reality. An oligarchy is not going to create a good capitalistic system.
No, the oligarchs have decided that democracy is simply inconvenient
It's not gonna work.
for the
I don't
hoarding
think
of wealth.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what part of that was that kind of creative revolution was that the right was really able to look at it psychologically, what the meaning, what the value was. And if you watch House of Cards, what's it all about? It's all about aesthetics. It was actually conservative Democrats. I would say I wouldn't even necessarily say that it was usurped by the conservative movement. I would say.
Yeah.
Of the flag and the religious movements and everything. And they did it aesthetics. And that's what a lot of people vote for. I think a lot of veterans, they see the red, white, and blue, and that's how they communicate. They see that. They see Trump, make America great again. It sounds good. They feel like they're being a patriotic, and they don't realize they're voting to cut the VA benefits. Right. Because this is how we really communicate. 75% of our communication is visual. And Republicans win on a lot of visual communication games. And I was really surprised when I went to when I was into my health school how conservative the graphic design people actually were. It was really shocking. I think we just assume that the creative artsy people are liberal.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
There are a lot of very creative people.
The actors and actresses and music stars and
we make this assumption that these creative people are going. So I think if you're creative and you're more like progressive, you're going into the arts and the theatrics and the theater, right?
Right.
But if you're more conservative, you went into graphic design, you went into the advertising, the promotion world, sales pitch, and that is, I think, a place where our communication really fails. We put through literature that's just like, what does it really? I mean, I get in literature sometimes like, well, what is your messaging?
Right.
All you do is have pictures of a candidate with their name.
Right.
What does that do? We'll vote for this candidate. Okay. Why?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like you said before, you stand for this, but how are you going to do it? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Part of it, I think you have to make people first aware of what the problem is before you move into persuasion.
Right.
And see, Republicans are all about what Ronald Reagan realized. I think un-American. I can't tell you how much I hear that.
Yeah.
And and that's why I think it's really important when we get veterans out there speaking. Okay, go on.
Let me let Randall in. Randall, go ahead, my friend. You got about 9 minutes.
Christopher, my friend, thank you, number one, for your veterans service. But thank you being up in Chester County. I'm here in Delco, south of you. And, I'm glad we're Facebook friends. And we would not have become Facebook friends if I hadn't found you through Jeff and the Kennedy effect. In any case, I'm almost 73, and of course my war generation is Vietnam.
Hmm.
I was protesting in high school. I wore a black armband after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that that is First Amendment rights, and I got punched in my arm every day by dozens and dozens of patriotic, brainwashed kids, in the freeway of changing classes. And I got my first anti-war visual was actually 10th grade at Media Courthouse, a candlelight visual where people have died because I lost a neighbor in 1967 in Vietnam. And neighbor, obviously a Gold Star family, parents and all my siblings, or all my peer group, age group. Yeah, I went to the 1969 November National Mobilization against the Vietnam War, and I got a billy club in my head at age 17. So
that explains a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, Christopher.
I'm only kidding.
Yes.
I'm only teasing it.
Christopher.
Yes.
My generation.
Yes.
All my vet friends from high school, college, and vets I met in my 20s and 30s and 40s. None of them, to my knowledge, voted for Trump. None of my generation vets voted for Trump that I know of. So it's interesting that, I believe, Jeff, the statistics that 60% of vets voted for Trump.
That's what the exit polling showed.
Okay, I understand that, Jeff.
Yeah.
But Christopher, excuse me. I got another friend named Christopher that I call Chris.
Let him answer.
Randall, I want to go into your point. This is exactly the problem that we have with the Democrats, right? We say, well, the 60% voted for Trump, and we neglect that 40% that voted for Harris. And so your group of people, your generation, the people who were impacted by war, right? Maybe somebody served who in that 60% served between the wars and used the money for the GI Bill and got a good paying job and doesn't like taxes, right? And there's so many nuances, but then people start to feel like, well, now you put me in this box that I'm, because 60%, and we forget, well, what about that 40%, right? And that's where I think is really, really critical for us to look beyond that and just message to people, right? And just get them for there, and a lot of and so that would I don't know if that was your question, if you had another question for me, but that's kind of the way I look at it. You know what I mean? I think we get into trouble when we start putting them into these groups and boxes, because yours is a great example. And a lot of them in Delco?
Yeah, I got some from Aston Township and some here from Brookhaven that are vets. In fact, and
that's a swing county, right?
So
when we're talking about it, go on.
One of my younger friends, who is gay, who teaches social science in one of the three I don't know which of the high schools in Westchester School District. He teaches history and social science. He got married a year ago, June, to his husband, and he's up for re-election locally, and it does not look good because this part of Delaware County, the southwestern part, Brookhaven, Aston, Chichester, the communities closer to
60th district. Is that the 160th district with Williams?
Yeah, no. Our state rep, no. Mary Gay Scanlon is our U.S. House.
Yes.
Leanne.
Craig Williams. I was thinking. Sorry, not.
Craig Williams is not. Thank God he's not here. Now, our state senator is probably your state senator too, Kane.
So I have Muth. I'm not fortunate. I love Kane. Kane is, oh gosh, I love him. He's amazing.
Well, he's in Southern Chester County, so
I'm more northern Chester County.
Oh, okay. So you're in a. Okay, I get you now.
Yeah.
Now understand. Okay. Yeah. In any case, getting back. Yeah, you know what? They want to separate us. The rich, the oligarchies, the billionaires class. They want to separate every type of class to fight each other. Yeah, that's the game plan. That goes back,
and we fall right for it, and we fall for it, and we keep talking endlessly about it, rather than just really going into
war.